7 p.m. There we go.
Okay, now we're live. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hello.
All right. Well, we'll keep talking about that. Wrote a little, the intro for the 20th season, and then realized I have no intro for the show topic. So,
excellent.
In the last 10 minutes before I had to run up and start getting ready for the live stream, I'm like trying to write up a little quick intro. So I got a little quick intro to the topic. I don't have a whole lot in depth on any one part of it, but I did break it down into categories, so I got it broken down into, is everything working here? Is everything working? I think everything's working. Okay.
Okay.
I've got it broken down into categories, thinking hardware, operating system.
Right.
What else did I do here? Hardware, operating system, apps, cloud, and then I have things, again, this is my perspective as I came up with this, but things like phone and tablet come after that. So in other words, I'm kind of focused on the Mac aspect of things at first, and then
no problem.
And then going
I don't know if you got my earlier email where I just threw my thoughts together, but they're in any old order, so I can jump around in that. So no problem with following any order. No problem.
And I was going to copy and paste them into my notes, and then I realized they were just like way too long, and I wasn't going to be able to do that. So I'm just going to let you cover your notes. I will cover my notes.
Fabulous.
There are a couple points of clear or areas where we will clearly disagree.
Yes.
that is quite clear up front. In a good, jocular, fun way.
Yes. There's a political podcast I listen to where they say they disagree agreeably.
And that is what we shall do, I'm sure.
Excellent.
Okay, so now we are, where is the rest of my stuff here? Why is that? Boy, I tell you, I am not ready for this, Darren. This has been a fun couple days. Okay, let's see here.
There we go.
Why? Oh, gosh darn it. Why can I not move this over? Oh, eek. It's scary pumpkin.
It's a scary, indeed. I've got some tied up on the door there as well. And
awesome.
Possibly, I don't think they will carry on now because I think they've just finished, but we just had some fireworks going off. So if you do hear some bangs, that could be interesting.
Oh, Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes Day,
indeed.
Huh? Is that today?
No,
that's not today.
It's not. No, it's not today, but that doesn't stop anyone letting fireworks off if they fancy it. We do have them go off all the time for the whole week, probably.
We have people shooting off fireworks for Halloween, for you're right, just for whatever reason, people.
No excuse needed.
Okay, one. Here we are. We are 4 minutes in. I'm going to go back to doing what we started to do last episode, and that's explain this whole process. Because someone who tunes in to the live stream may not be very familiar with, well, they're probably familiar with the process, what we're doing, what we're going through. This is a live to tape type thing. Yeah. So we are recording everything that we do. No, we're live streaming. We're live streaming everything that we do to record the show to YouTube. That's what you're watching, right? So the recording, the whole recording process, the whole recording of the podcast is what you're seeing, warts and all, as I say. So that's the pre-show, that's the gaffes, that's the rat hole conversations, comments from listeners. If you're leaving a comment in the chat room over there. And then this live to tape thing that we're doing, as it were. That would be cool if I was recording to tape, but I'm not. I'm recording to an SD card in my mixer, but you know what I mean. It's like the floppy disk icon for save, right? We're recording to tape.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I take that recording to tape and edit it down for the podcast. So you, if you're watching this, you folks, or if you're watching this after the fact, you are going to catch us live streaming most of the time at 1 p.m. Central Time on the second and fourth Saturday of each month. And that would be at youtube.com/FMEOTV. And the next live stream would be what would it be? That would be the 22nd. So today is November 8th. Our next live stream would be the 22nd, which is the fourth Saturday of the month. So second and fourth Saturday. Yeah. It's not every other week. It's the second and fourth Saturday. And if you ever want to look up when the next episode's going to be, just go to that channel, youtube.com/FMEOTV, and the next upcoming live stream will be there. And if you are subscribed to the show, which I encourage you to do, that would be amazingly awesome of you to subscribe to the show, get some subscriber numbers up, but also so that you get notifications when we are going live. So that would be one of the advantages of it. And it's free to subscribe, for goodness sakes. Just go to youtube.com/FMEOTV, click subscribe.
Absolutely.
And we'll be added to your list of channels. Man, that was way longer of an explanation than I needed. So, and just to give everyone an idea for the state of my mind, I always write down the FMEO and then the episode number, and then I write down the start time and the stop time from my recorder over here to make it easier to edit, And I went to write down FMEO, and in my head I was thinking for Mac Eyes Only, and I wrote the number 4.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
I think we moved on a little bit since then.
that's where I'm. Well, 4 Mac Eyes Only, so I wrote down 4.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah. Yes. Took me a while to get that one. Yeah, I'm not quite there.
Which, by the way, I do have that domain. So if you go to 4, the number 4 Mac Eyes Only.
Very good.
You'll get us. Yeah, I got that. I don't know when I got that. I got that a long time ago.
You can tell you thought this through.
Well, and don't give me that much credit, Darren. Don't give me that much credit, certainly. But, yeah. All right. There we go. Cheers.
Cheers. I've got a strange concoction. It's called a Puddle of Mud.
A puddle of mud. And what would the recipe be for a puddle of mud, Darren?
The Puddle of Mud recipe, very popular in pubs around my neck of the woods, is orange juice and Coke.
Oh, God, that sounds horrible.
And it looks horrible. It looks absolutely horrible. Hence the name, Puddle of Mud.
Orange juice and Coke.
It tastes much better than it looks.
Orange juice and Coke. Well,
yeah, try it one day. Yeah. What could go wrong?
Give that a try sometime, I suppose. And what mad scientist concocted that, I wonder?
Well, I think it was popular back in the day, especially when I was around the schoolways. Of course, you weren't able to drink alcohol when you were on a school trip. So the number one choice of beverage, if you stopped by a pub on your school trip, which it's quite easy to do around these parts, it is to order a Puddle of Mud, and that's what you get.
Interesting. And I've had orange Coke, and
it's close.
Cherry Coke goes way back to the old soda fountain days. You put a little.
Yeah, no, this is proper orange juice and Coke mixed.
And I think that's what gets me, the orange juice. It doesn't seem like that would mix very well.
It doesn't sound like it would, mix very well at all. But give it a try. See what you
So how
think.
much? Is it half and half? Is it a third? And
Half and half, yeah. There you go.
and half.
Half and half, yeah.
Huh. And you know what? I will try it. I'm always willing to try something.
Report back.
No, I am always willing to try most things once. There are certain things I absolutely will not try. And my sincere apologies to those who love it, but haggis is one of the things I absolutely will not try.
Yes. If you did want to partake of some haggis, it's probably best not to find out what's in it.
Oh, no, I know what's in it. That's why I won't try it.
That's why you won't try it, exactly.
I know what's in it. Well, there you go. So we have a topic for this episode, and what do you think? Should we get started? We're 11 minutes in. Certainly not a record for getting started, but we can definitely get started.
Not bad at all. Yeah.
Not bad. And oh, nope, that's not what I want. Oh, that's fine. I'll just do that. Okay. I have like a duplicated version of us over to my right, and I'll often have it set to what's going to the live stream, and it's not, I'm seeing three of you to my right. I'm seeing the Zoom connection window. I'm seeing the main Zoom window, and in the main Zoom window is the gallery, which is you on the left, and then the two of us on the right. And then, of course, if I switch to this, I'm going to see three full screens of you over there. So
wow.
Nobody needed to.
I think I'd be confused.
And then I have two of you in front of me. So there's a total of 5 of you right now.
And we might all be out of sync, I should imagine.
No, it's synced up pretty darn well. Yeah, Zoom is always there's a little bit of a
little delay,
mismatch on Zoom, but the live stream should be okay. Well, let's go. I took your suggestion for creature and changed it up a little bit, but you are certainly welcome to use your suggestion. I was trying to avoid trademark issues. Toho, as a company, I think can get quite litigious if you start, using their trademarks and names, copyrights. No, it wouldn't be a copyright; it'd be a trademark. But yeah, so I used a slight. Toho, by the way, is the company that produces the Godzilla movies and.
Oh, of course, yes. Yeah.
So they may not. It's like Disney. It's like Disney going after, child daycare centers that have a picture of Mickey Mouse up on the wall, and they're like, "No, you can't do that," and they come by with a bulldozer and plow the whole thing over. Okay, shocking. They don't do that, but they say, "Yeah, maybe you probably shouldn't do that," and I don't disagree. There you go. There's the state of Mike's mind. We're now 14 minutes in. Let's get started.
Cool. Let's go for it. You need a clapperboard so you do the movie thing.
I have 2 at the office. I have an official one, and then I have let's see, I think it might be MGM Studios. Back when it was called Disney's MGM Studios, but it may be a Hollywood Studios after they made the name change, after they split with MGM and got rid of all the MGM stuff from the park. It may just be a Hollywood Studios clapper, but I do have an official one too. And
fabulous.
Yeah, not here. It's at the office. It's in my video studio there, which I'm currently revamping. I'm in the process of revamping that studio to start up another YouTube channel, which I will talk about here on For Mac Is Only once
Wow.
it started,
Very
because
impressive.
it is Mac adjacent. So,
Oh, excellent. As
yeah.
if you haven't got enough to do.
Yeah, that's a fair enough point. That is a fair point, and that is almost exactly the point my wife has made. Yes.
Well,
No, she didn't say that. But okay, here we go. Are you ready, sir?
I am indeed. I just muted myself
That
so
was
you
one of
could do
those
your
Zoom
intro.
delays. That was a Zoom
Oh.
delay right there.
There you go.
Let's see here. I'm going to zoom you out just a little bit there. Yeah. Okay. Now we should be good. Well, I had like, that. Yeah. So we want to get roughly similar sizing here. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Okay. In 3, 2, 1. It's For Mac Guys Only, episode number 461 for October 25th, 2025. It's not October 25th, it's November 8th. What the heck am I doing? I forgot to update the date in my notes here. Oh, this is going to be fun, people. Here we go. In outtakes. Click.
Oh, warts and all. Here we go.
Warts and all. What? Gosh. Okay, here we go. Welcome to season 20. 3, 2, 1. It's For Mac Guys Only, episode number 461 for November 8th, 2025. Kaiju Catastrophe. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to revisit these strange creatures of our dreams is Darren Davies. Howdy, Darren. How you doing?
Howdy there.
And remember, we do normally record For Mac Guys Only live on YouTube the second and fourth Saturdays of the month. And if you would like to come hang out, if you would like to ask questions, if you would like to be part of our live studio audience, be sure to subscribe to the show at youtube.com/FMEO TV. And if you are joining us live, I will be keeping an eye on the chat room that is over here to my right, and thank you for the thumbs up there, folks. So if you have any questions or comments, be sure to drop them in there, and we will try to address them here on the show. And there may actually be some comments for today's show, because it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. Well, Darren, this episode kicks off our 20th season of For Mac Guys Only, and I actually wanted to take a quick moment. Thank you. I wanted to thank everyone who got us this far throughout the years, whether it is folks who are contributing to the blog, producing segments for the show, or taking on regular co-hosting duties. I've been lucky to have all of these folks reach out to me and say, "Hey, Mike, how can I help?" Or in some cases, they might have said, sure, I guess I could do that. And while I feel that maybe I don't mention these people quite enough, I can't think of a better time than the kickoff for Mac Eyes Only's 20th year. Now the problem is, I could start naming folks like Pam Arnone, Peter Upfold, Lisa M., aka Exercise Nut, you know who you are. I could name all of them for their blogging skills, or I could name folks like my longtime friend Dan Vusko. I have known Dan for over 50 years, and I could thank him for his Web Travels with Dan segments. Or, of course, all of our good friends, Dave Ginsburg, Chuck Joyner, Jeff Gamet, Melissa Davies, Brian Henson, and so many others who have taken a turn at the mic during reaction time episodes, regular episodes, For Mac Guys Only TV segments, or even outright stepping into my shoes to take on hosting duties. and you know who you are. And of course, where would this show be without dear, dear friends like Barry Folk, who just happened to mention that he would be at, I think it was Podcast Expo, and somehow I convinced or roped him into doing a regular series of interviews from that trade show that he was attending.
Yes.
And also somehow convinced him to do or make regular FMACA's Only TV appearances, as well as appear in other segments that we called On the Road with Barry Folk. And then, of course, there's that little thing that he started up called the Midwest Mac Barbecue. Then there's Gaz, or as I always called him, probably much to his annoyance, Gary, and his long-running News and Views from Across the Pond segment. Now, I seem to recall that Gaz won the app Disco. Disco was a CD and DVD burning app, and we were doing some giveaways for our 50th episode. We had a drawing for these apps way back in 2007, November 2007, to be exact, which means,
year.
Yeah, which means that I have now, I've now proudly known Gaz for 19 years. And back then, he said it looked like he would have to listen forever, which are his words, not mine. Little did he know that by inviting me to an iChat, he would soon find himself roped into his own segment on the show. And that was News and Views from Across the Pond. That's how Excellent. I get you, Gaz. That's how I get you. And it's exactly how I got Eric, who first reached out to me in June of 2008. And not long after, just a little over 2 years after he first reached out to me, if I remember correctly, I invited him to contribute to the show's blog. And then, like with Gaz, it didn't take long before I taunted him by waggling a mic in front of his face and got him into the co-hosting seat that he still holds to this day, 15 years later. Ha! That'll teach him to send me feedback. No, I kid. I've not only had the honor of getting to know Barry and Gaz and Dave and Eric, but also getting to meet them and their families in person, which is a much, much bigger honor and joys of friendship that I could never ask for. And big surprise, the story isn't much different for another current co-host who happens to be here today. And while your path to the while your path to the co-host seat began more recently, Darren, it also started with an innocent email about. Do you remember? Do you remember what the email was about?
I do. I think I was berating you for not having an iPhone and being an Android person when you were hosting a Mac show.
Well, maybe.
I think that was one of the...
Maybe. But the first email, okay, you know what? Maybe you did. I think you did send me that now that I think about it. But the first email I thought of was running Windows on a Mac. And,
there's that as well, yes.
Yeah, and you described your technique as the best thing since sliced bread.
Well, that's what I think anyway.
That was RDP. Yeah, you suggested RDP to run Windows on a Mac. You had a little PC off to the side somewhere, and you were using a remote desktop to get into it. Yep.
Yeah, a little headless PC plugged into my router. There you go.
That's right. And then a little over a year later, somehow I convinced you to pick up a mic and join us for a special episode that covered virtualization on a Mac.
Perfect.
And here you are today.
The circle is now complete.
The circle is now complete. And there's another round of thanks that needs to go out, and I would be more remiss than not naming any of the folks I just named. I'd be more remiss in not naming these people, and that's you, the FMACA's Only listening audience. whether it's folks I hear from regularly like Lisa, Brian, Nick, Andrew, our new friend Ivan, or if you happen to be someone who listens but hasn't reached out, at least not yet. Doing the show without you wouldn't be anything more than a couple of friends chatting on the phone, which, trust me, Eric and I do plenty. And then when we're done talking, we say, why didn't we record that for the show?
We should have recorded that.
Yeah. So having you join us each week means the world to me. And it means the world to everyone here at For Mac Guys Only. Darren, Eric, Gaz, Barry, everyone I've just mentioned. You being out there listening to us is just so very special to all of us.
Absolutely.
And of course, my MacStock family wouldn't exist without the show. Thank you to everyone who has helped make MacStock a success, including countless presenters, sponsors, volunteers, and MacStock's attendees. MacStock is a conference that I started because of and thanks to the For Mac Guys Only community. And I am so proud of MacStock's success and that MacStock itself will be celebrating 10 years in 2026. So I hope everyone out there listening can join us. It's going to be July 2026, and I'm going to get more information about that in the weeks to come. And then there's one more round of thanks, and that's to my family, to my wife, my daughter, and of course my dad. They may not fully understand what I do down here at my desk as I record and edit the show, but they know how much fun I have doing it. There are quite a few of you out there who have met them, so you know the support and love that I have behind me as I put out the show, and that's why I share that same support and love with my For Mac Guys Only family. So, with all that said, thank you everyone for 20 great years. And here's looking to many, many more years to come.
Cool. Yep, another 20 at least.
No, not another. I don't think another 20. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know, Darren. I don't know about another 20. That would be a tough haul. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But this episode, this is definitely a little different, Darren. This episode, as we kick off a new season, we are actually revisiting episode 457, where we rebuilt our Apple ecosystem from scratch. But we are visiting it from a little bit of a different angle. Instead of the mythical elephant in the room stomping our gear, which was our example scenario last time, what if, rising from the depths of the Pacific, Cupertino were to be visited by the Mighty Elephanzilla, a creature so horrible, bringing so much disaster in its wake, that Apple's spaceship campus and all of its trappings, all of its headquarters and buildings around the world were laid waste in the wake of the strange creature's mighty horned trunk.
Horrifying.
Horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. And now what? What do we do? What do we do if Apple ceases to exist thanks to the Mighty Elephanzilla? Well, certainly in the wake of such disaster, we may be faced with many, many more horrible decisions to make other than what equipment could possibly replace our Apple ecosystem. But what if? Well, this question, this follow-up, actually came up in a slightly different way. And it's a question that came up by way of a listener who's not happy with some of the decisions that Apple and Tim Cook both have been making as a company and where they feel it's best to spend some of their billions of dollars. And while I'm not going to get into the politics of the question, the ultimate question from the listener was, how can I be a Mac user How can I be an Apple user but effectively boycott the company? And I'm just gonna boil this down to a couple simple points, and then we'll get on to the Mighty Elephanzilla, Darren. But in short, the simple answer is don't spend your money with Apple. Don't buy new equipment. Don't buy refurbished from Apple. I'm sorry?
Oh, so I was just agreeing with you, saying it's a choice. You can choose where you spend your money. Usually, the wallet is king. Where you spend your pennies is where influence goes often.
Yeah, it absolutely where influence goes. And we could certainly pick out other companies that have made the decision not to support some of the things that Apple has decided to support. We can do that. And some of the reasons behind it include the understanding that they may tick off a certain segment of their audience by showing favor one way or another, right?
Yeah.
So what do? You don't spend your money with Apple. Especially don't buy new. Don't buy refurbished from Apple. Instead, one way you can continue to be an Apple user, you can continue to be a Mac user, but not spend your money with Apple, is to buy used. Buy used from reputable resellers who sell quality refurbished gear, resellers who stand behind that gear with a warranty. Often it's a 90-day warranty, but many of them, including one I'm going to mention that I have used before myself, will even sell you extended warranties. And a lot of that equipment... oh, go ahead.
I was sorry. I was going to mention that we have a company, a well-known company in the UK, which sells pre-loved equipment, including Apple stuff. But they're quite good because they you can part exchange things, so you can go there to sell things for store credit and buy new stuff, including retro gear.
Very nice.
Their claim to fame. So yeah, it'd be a lovely. You'd love to visit it, I'm sure. But one of the claims to fame there of this particular shop is that they offer a 5-year warranty. So for anything that you buy that is pre-loved and secondhand, because they've inspected it to a very high level, they can offer a 5-year warranty on that item you buy. So it's really good.
On used equipment.
Well, I should say what they're called, actually, shouldn't I?
Yeah, definitely.
The company is called CEX, and they're well known here. They have quite a few stores around the country.
Oh, I've heard of CEX, actually. I guess I didn't realize that they... well, I've heard of them only because I follow a decent chunk of the UK tech scene.
UK stuff,
that's my history with UK tech. But I guess I didn't realize that they sold so much used and retro gear. And then to put a 5-year warranty on used gear, that's really amazing,
isn't it? Yeah. So you can pop in and buy an Atari Jaguar if you want to. So discontinued years and years and years ago, but it'll be brand new there in the box, or it'll feel like it, refurbished and with a 5-year warranty. So
I got to find out how that works.
As if it's new.
I got to find out how that works. How can you give a 5-year warranty on hardware that may currently work really well, but the caps may explode on in a year?
Well, that's it. They do inspect retro kit to a high degree, so they check for that. They check the board. They're like, this does this board look like it's in need of a recap, for instance? And if so, then it's not sold on as the A status. They'll put it in a lower status, like a B or a C or something like that, with a note to say that that the board hasn't been recapped, but it's in a slightly different state. So the price has changed. So if you buy A status goods, that's the ones that have been like absolutely checked for everything, and then they're confident that it'll have a long and lasting lifetime.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. So that's one way. Don't spend your money with Apple. Buy from reputable Apple used gear resellers. Two that I have personally used include OWC, Otherworld Computing, and
yes, they're brilliant.
Mac of all trades is another one I've used.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a good name, and it's a good company, and they do stand behind their product when they sell it to you, and it's packed really, really well when they ship it to you. You don't get original Apple boxes, obviously, but you do get quality gear, and it's packed really well, and they stand behind it. And so does OWC. I think the only thing I would probably recommend when you're buying used is to make sure that you are getting not only the equipment that you're expecting, but the accessories that you're expecting. Oftentimes with used Mac resellers, and I suppose it's true for iPhone and iPad as well, but when you're dealing with used Mac resellers, often you won't necessarily get the keyboard. You won't necessarily get the mouse. You won't even, in some cases, get a power cord. So you have to go through and make sure that as you're purchasing it, it includes what you expect. And if it doesn't include what you expect, there's often a tick box. Just check that box, and they'll at an extra cost throw a keyboard or mouse or power cord or whatever into the box with it. But don't expect the full Apple treatment when buying used, but do expect quality gear. Much of that equipment, in fact, I did check both of these resellers that I've used before we started recording. You can get Apple Silicon running Macs as current as the M4 processor. You can get recent iPhone releases, including iPhone 16s and 16 Pros, as well as, current models of the Apple Watch, Apple TV, iPads, and other gear. So don't think that because you're buying used, you're getting something that's 5, 6, 7 years old. You might get something that's 6 months old. The iMac I have at the office, I actually purchased, and I don't mind saying, I purchased through OWC. Fantastic deal. It was literally new in box. It was a refurbished unit from Apple, so it came with everything that Apple would include with a refurbished unit. It was 2 terabytes of storage and 16 gig of memory in an iMac.
Nice.
For a jaw-dropping price. And now I've looked, and they have M3s, and I think I even saw an M4 on there too. So yes, you can get an older Mac. You can get a trash can Mac Pro if you want, but you can also get a modern Apple Silicon Mac if you prefer. So, ask around, get recommendations from others, visit Apple forums and ask what they use for buying used equipment. But those 3 that we mentioned, CEX, OWC, and Mac of all trades, are all great to purchase from. So that's one way. Buy used equipment. Then your money is not going to Apple. Your money is going to the reseller, the company that made the effort to refurbish the equipment and make sure it was good for you to purchase, and to make sure that you are up to date as you can be when buying used. But then we get into things like, discontinue your iCloud subscription, cancel your Apple TV Plus, or Apple TV as they're calling it these days. In short, just stop giving them your money, right? That would be a soft boycott. In other words, you are continuing to be an Apple user, you're continuing to be a Mac user, but you're not giving Apple your money. It does bring up some important questions. And that's where we're getting to the main topic of the show. Where do you go instead? And that's where our kaiju friend, the Mighty Elephanzilla, comes into the picture. Because if we can imagine a world without Apple, then we can also answer your question, if not in a more roundabout way. So, assuming that you want to shed all vestiges of Apple from your life, and if you don't, the used route is a good way to go. But assuming you want to shed all vestiges of Apple, where do you turn? And what can you get instead? Now, from my perspective,
that's what's available out there. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just identifying what's available out there as an alternative is an interesting thought experiment in itself.
Identifying what's available as an alternative, identifying something that wasn't also destroyed by the Elephanzilla, because a lot of those companies are near each other out there in California.
Yes.
But more importantly, from my perspective, the goal with this thought experiment is to find something that can step in for the functionality that we're looking for, while also, and I think this is very important, while also maintaining maximum compatibility. And
that's the tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky. But I should also say this is not intended to be the answers, but rather just places to start. Kicking off points, as it were, to get the brain gears turning and opening the mind to exploring the myriad options that are out there. Even if you are an Apple user, I think some of the stuff, and I presume you are if you're listening to the show, some of the stuff that I'm going to mention anyway is stuff that you can adopt right now, because the things that I'm mentioning, especially when it comes to software, apps that you might install on this alternative ecosystem, I made an effort to narrow down to apps that can currently be run on a Mac. So I also see this as an opportunity to simplify my tech life.
Minimalist.
No, not a minimalist,
Minimalism.
but just simplify.
Tech minimalism. Here we go.
There are certain things that I feel I could comfortably eliminate from my ecosystem, which we did discuss in 457. But there are some things I think I could comfortably eliminate. And if I don't have the option to get an alternative, then eliminating it would be the way to simplify. So that's kind of the setup. We're not supplying answers here, just little nuggets to get you thinking about what the future might bring you in a world without Apple. And I think we can break it down into a few categories that, if we tackle them in order, might make the most sense. So the categories I came up with, Darren, and inject any that you think I missed here. But step one, Mac replacement. What do we get to replace our Macs? 2, OS replacement. 3, app replacements. 4, cloud replacements, if you choose to go that way. Then we've got phone and tablet replacements, and then kind of everything else. So that's kind of what I broke it down to. Is there anything that you would like to add to that list before we start?
Well, yeah, there would be a couple of things on my list that would come under your everything else banner, which would be more important to me. So would be not in an everything else bundle. So that would be the Apple TV, which is quite a core component to what I do for entertainment. My whole entertainment world is based around the Apple TV, so that would be quite a big thing to replace, and what to replace them with. But linked to that, also the software side, and to do with the cloud as well. I'm a big user of Apple Movies. Where would I get my movies from to play on my non-existent Apple TV then, if I was to replace that? So it's quite a big question with those two things. And the other main thing I use that's very, very difficult to find a good replacement for, especially for me, because I haven't added complexity there where I would be trying to avoid Google, so I'd be avoiding Android. So not only would I stipulate not to buy something from Apple, I'd also be stipulating not getting anything from Google either, so no Android. So that makes my third thing that I use a lot, which is iCloud Photo Library, trying to get that sort of functionality from another type of collection of devices and cloud services for photo management is very, very, very hard without either going to Apple or Google.
I will disagree with you on that,
Okay.
because it is actually one thing I thought about. Now, while this could be an episode in and of itself, I would like... No, we'll talk about it when we get to it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Let's
okay.
start with hardware. Let's start with Mac replacements. Now, you've put a lot of thought into this the last couple of days. You sent me quite a long list of the types of equipment you would look at as a replacement for the Mac, assuming you couldn't get another Mac, right?
Yes.
Assuming you couldn't either get another new Mac or a used Mac, which we talked about. You put some thought into this. So not getting into the operating system side of things, what would you get for hardware?
Right. So it's funnily enough, out of all the Apple kit that I have, I think replacing the iMac is potentially one of the easiest things to do. Although the alternative that I managed to find is actually more expensive. And because it's unclear whether it's hardware machine learning cores and its video encoding cores, which are specialist stuff on Macs with ARM processors, the M series Macs, it's unclear whether any of those technologies would work at all in a replacement system. I didn't manage to find a replacement system, but not going into the OS side of things, it's tricky to think whether that replacement system will actually behave in any way, shape or form the same way as my iMac does now. So it feels like if those two things aren't able to be taken advantage of from the OS or the software I'll be running on the system, then it feels like I'd be stepping back in time by 5 years. So it's rather weird feeling to say, okay, here's a replacement bit of hardware that could potentially be similar to an iMac, but it feels at least 5 years out of date if some of the features that I'm used to won't work anymore.
It's interesting that you brought up the Intel versus ARM comparison, because in the PC... Okay, let's just clarify things. The Mac is a PC. The Mac is a personal computer, all right? But yes. When it comes to Mac versus PC, what we're really talking about is the Windows and everything else side of things versus the Mac side of things. So when we say PC, we mean, in general, a broad general terms, a Windows running computer versus a Mac OS running computer. Now, the operating system that can run on PC hardware can vary quite a bit, and I know we are both going to get into that discussion. But the Intel versus ARM side of things is interesting, because my observation of the PC industry at the moment is that ARM really is not getting the traction that it's gotten on the Mac side, and that's because there isn't one driving force on the PC side to ensure that it gets pushed through. Apple is pushing through their new architecture and saying, this is it. This is all you can do. You have to either like it or lump it, which I guess is the point of this discussion. But developers, software developers, hardware developers, everybody has to embrace it because Apple says, this is what you have to do. And on the PC side, the hardware manufacturers certainly understand the benefits of ARM. They understand the benefits of a unified architecture, but it's just not getting the same traction. And even if you say, hey, I'm going to run Windows for ARM, well, good luck finding all the same software that you were running on an Intel-based Windows computer. It just doesn't all exist without some sort of emulation taking place, which does exist. But if you're going to go that route, and the bulk of what you are depending upon is effectively Intel software or software that requires an Intel processor, just go with an Intel processor. And I think that's kind of what's happening in the PC world. There's an understanding that this other way might be better, it might be faster in some ways, it's just not happening. It's that the wheels just aren't catching.
Yeah, I think there's so much momentum built up with the Intel's history and the 86 history in particular, that ARM is clearly the better way, and it will change going forward, and most things will be ARM based. But the momentum is so strong with Intel that it's going to take a very, very long time for the Intel based main systems out there to transition away from that onto ARM. It's much easier for the likes of Apple to have done it, because they built in translation layers from ARM to x86 at the get-go, and every application after the developers caught on to it a few months later down the road was able to run on both hardware. So the transition was very easy. But in the other operating system worlds out there, the transition is much harder. You've got a lot of competing hardware bases, and then you've got competing operating systems which may or may support various combinations of hardware. And then where do the developers focus their efforts? So if you're a Mac developer, focusing your efforts on ARM is an easy choice, as you say, because the transition has happened. It's easy. It's there. This is the way we're doing it, and follow this method, and you're golden. But in the non-Apple world, it's a little bit of a free-for-all, and it's going to be like that for another 5 to 10 years possibly before they catch on to where Apple is now. So that's another reason for it feeling like you're going back in time when you're trying to get a complete, moving away from Apple entirely. Don't be too surprised if it feels like you're going back in time a bit.
And it will happen, and it can happen much quicker if Microsoft says, you know what, ARM only from this point forward. From 2026 forward,
it'd be great if they did.
2026 forward, or whatever, 2027 forward, only ARM Windows. That's it. No more Intel. That would be effectively the same forcing of the hand that Apple did. And the thing is, Microsoft just will never, ever do that. Never.
No, they
will never do that.
No. They've already got partners for all their Intel technologies. They've got partners they work with. If they did do that, then half of the industry will be up in arms, or more than that, actually. 80% of the industry would lose their minds.
Well, and I mean, it's just not in their DNA. It's not something that Microsoft does. They do not ever say, well, okay, the TPU issues aside.
Yes, you were going to say draw a line in the sand, weren't you? But they just have.
They have, but the thing is, you can get around it.
Sort of.
Easily. It's very easy to get around Microsoft's hardware requirements and run Windows 11 on older, quote, unsupported hardware. It's very easy to do that.
But will that unsupported hardware still maintain patches after the unsupported date?
If it's running Windows 11, it will. That's what I'm saying. It's easy to run Windows 11 on older hardware. It's easy to fool 11 into running on older hardware. And the reason that ability to fool it into running on older hardware is even possible is because secretly, deep down in their gut, Microsoft does not want to lose these people as customers. They know that there's a certain segment of the market that just is not ready to go purchase new hardware or purchase new software, and they're perfectly happy to be running their Windows 10 machine from 8 years ago. And if they could somehow put Windows 11 on that 8-year-old PC, they'll continue to be Windows customers. If they can't, then there's a very good chance they might look at the Mac or look at an alternate operating system. And Microsoft just does not have it in them to cut. That's why we can run software from 30 years ago on a Windows 11 PC. Like they do not want to lose any, well, you run it quite reliably in my experience anyway. But you can run old DOS applications on Windows 11 for goodness sake.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. But you can run DOS on anything now. You can run that on a potato almost.
You can run it on a potato, but that's not the point. You can run it on native Windows 11 without modification. It'll just run. And
there is one problemette though there, because Microsoft have stated that future OS updates may not reliably or probably won't reliably install on machines that detect Windows 11 is running on unsupported hardware. So you might get around the problem to start with, but going forward, will you have a reliable computer from that point onwards?
I believe people will. But that's a whole nother conversation. All right. So anyway, the issue is, I think we agree that if you're going to look at new hardware, you're probably going to be looking at an Intel-based PC.
Yes, for a desktop at least.
For a desktop.
You may have a few more.
Talking about a Mac replacement.
That's it, Mac replacement. But then Macs also cover laptops as well, so you may have a little bit more
desktop
leeway
computer.
on the laptop
That's
side of
all
things.
the same thing. The laptop, box on your desk. It's a desktop computer. That's my view on this. We're not talking about tablets. We're not talking about anything. We're talking about desktop computers. A Mac is a Mac. It doesn't matter what form factor it's in. It's still a Mac.
The ARM processor hasn't been adopted on desktop PCs, but has had some traction on laptop PCs in the form of Snapdragon.
Yeah, whatever. Nobody's buying those. Nobody wants those computers.
Oh dear.
Nobody wants a Snapdragon running laptop.
So I put more stipulation on what I was replacing things with to make my life even harder, actually, funnily enough. So I was also avoiding Windows, which means extra problems perhaps, and I was also avoiding Google. So that cuts everything down quite substantially. So if you're avoiding Apple, you're avoiding Google, and you're avoiding Microsoft, I come up with an answer for what I would replace the iMac with, which is the HP Omni Studio all-in-one, which is quite similar in look and feel to an iMac-ish, nearly there, but paired with Linux Mint, because that has nice virtual desktop and multi-touch gesture support, so it feels quite Mac-like. Mm-hmm. So that would be my choice, the HP Omni Studio with Linux Mint.
Okay. And from my perspective, having personal experience with HP consumer-grade computers, I would rather stab a pitchfork into my ear than ever purchase an HP computer.
Oh, yes.
So while the idea is the same, my recommendation is a little bit different. My recommendation for PC side of the aisle hardware would be actually, and it's quite nice hardware, by the way. If you're looking for something that's more equivalent to a MacBook Pro, you might look at the Dell Pro Plus line of computers, which are laptops, come in 14 and 16 inch. The 16-inch has something that a Mac laptop has never had, and that's a numeric keypad, all in the same form factor as a MacBook Pro. They're aluminum because you're getting the Pro Plus. The Pro Plus has the aluminum chassis, not that junky plastic chassis. You can get, if you want, you can get an AMD Ryzen Pro chip or an Intel Core Ultra chip in it. And the 14-inch is also available as a 2-in-1, where you fold it over and it takes on kind of a tablet-like format. So that would be a laptop. For desktops, I'm a big fan of the Pro Slim or small form factor Dell desktop computers. They're a reasonable size without being overwhelming like a tower computer is. If you remember the big old I mean, they took up half your room when you put them under your desk. But the small form factor computers are a nice size. They're maybe about 4 inches wide by, maybe a foot, a little over a foot deep, and maybe about a foot tall. So, good size, fits on the desk, fits behind your monitor or whatever. That's the Pro Slim. But they also have a Micro. I'm not as big of a fan of the Micro. That's about a 7-inch square by maybe about an inch to inch and a half tall computer. Not as big of a fan because they tend to have limited upgradability. But if we're comparing it to something like a Mac Mini, well, you have no upgradability there either. So why not get a Pro Micro? And then for the iMac side of things, there's also the Dell Pro 24 all-in-one. Again,
so you're all in on Dell.
Over HP any day.
Fair enough.
So no, it's a brand I have come to like as a PC brand. I found their support to be exemplary. I mean, most of their desktop computers come with 3-year warranties. If you're in this Pro line of computer, you get a 3-year warranty on it out of the box, which is great. Laptops typically 1 year, and they don't tend to load up their computers with a bunch of crapware like HP does. And by the way, their computers also stay running for decent amounts of time before they fail, unlike, no, I won't say it. Wow. Unlike another brand that has 2 letters that I shall not name.
So you'd stick with Windows then?
No, that I'm talking just hardware. So just from the hardware side of things, I think this is a great lineup. I should point out that Dell is one of the few major PC hardware manufacturers that does offer alternate operating systems on their hardware. So if you're looking for Linux, which we're going to get to in just a moment, Dell is a great brand to get a factory-built and supported installation of Linux on your desktop. So but those are great PCs.
Only if you like Ubuntu, but that's okay, a good choice.
You just mentioned an Ubuntu derivative, so why not?
I did.
Yeah. The thing about Mint, I love Mint. I think Mint is an excellent distro or distribution of Linux. Absolutely wonderful. The thing about it with its Cinnamon desktop is that it is more of a Windows look and feel.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the operating system. You mentioned Linux Mint. I think that's a great alternative operating system. I love Linux Mint. I love their color scheme, which is a green and dark gray color scheme. I love the Cinnamon desktop. I think that's great. It doesn't give you a very Mac-like experience, but it does offer very broad compatibility with hardware. Much of that thanks to its origins with, it's being a derivative of Ubuntu. So, let's give Ubuntu credit where credit's due. And of course, Linux Mint does put their own effort into compatibility and hardware compatibility as well. So there's that. But my pick is Ubuntu. I really love the fact that the default Ubuntu installation can be made to look and feel very much like a Mac, including the dock on the bottom and the menu bar across the top. Mint can be made to look that way too, and that's one of the joys of Linux, is that you have the ability to modify the look and feel of the operating system almost infinitely. But out of the box, Mint a little bit more Windows-like, Ubuntu, a little bit more Mac-like. So that's why that's my pick. Mint does this as well because of the fact that they're based on Ubuntu, but there are two versions of Ubuntu to download by default. One is what they call the LTS, or the long-term support version. That is currently at version 24. And here's something that Mac users may find interesting. That comes with 5 years of security and maintenance updates free with the download. And if you become an Ubuntu Pro member, which has a free level, you get up to 12 years of security and maintenance updates with the long-term support version. So the version 24 long-term support may not be the latest and greatest, but because of its stability, Ubuntu is able to offer all these additional years of support if you opt to go with what they call Ubuntu Pro. Now, the current version, released in August, is Ubuntu 25.1. Questing Quokka. Every version has a
I love the names.
A new animal associated with it. Yeah. It's like the long-term support version. It is a little bit more similar to what we have with Mac OS. But unlike the long-term support version, you get 9 months of security and maintenance updates. So in that regard, it's much more similar to the upgrade cycle that we have with Mac OS. You're always on the latest and greatest. You just have to remember to upgrade every year instead of trusting
you're expected to upgrade every year or two.
Instead of trusting that you're going to get 5 years of security and maintenance, you're going to be upgrading every year to get that 9 months of security and maintenance. So it's a little bit
every time you upgrade, you get a new 9 months.
Exactly. A little bit more frequent upgrade cycle, but then again, that's very familiar to Mac users in that
that's what we're used to.
We're upgrading every year anyway. And then one of the things I like, you mentioned Linux Mint, and I'll let you extol the virtues of that in just a moment. But there is actually a version, or a flavor, as they call it, of Ubuntu that's the cinnamon version. So you can actually download a version of Ubuntu that looks and feels very much like Linux Mint. There's a Mate version of it. Mate is another desktop in the Linux world that is a little bit more compatible with older hardware. And then one of the things I really love is there's a flavor of Ubuntu called the Ubuntu Studio. And Ubuntu Studio is for folks maybe a little bit more Mac-like in mindset, because it's kind of pre-configured for content creation. So rather than needing to go out and download all these different apps to create your content, they come built into this distro of Ubuntu, which is called Ubuntu Studio. So that may be a good place to start if you are more creative-minded and you're not running a Mac, or, let's be honest here. If you're listening to this and you think that sounds kind of cool, build yourself an Ubuntu Studio Mac to run alongside an Ubuntu Studio PC to run alongside your Mac, and experiment with it. There's a lot to be said for experimenting with alternate operating systems and learning what else is out there. So if you're
you can actually learn a fair bit about some of the free and open source software that's out there that can also run on the Mac. So for instance, I've learnt quite a few Mac apps, or about some Mac apps that I didn't know existed until I found them pre-installed in a Linux distribution.
That's right.
I've done that. So you can find out that some apps exist out there on the interwebs for you to download on your Mac, and you can discover them just through trying a few Linux distributions to see what they have pre-installed.
Guess what I'll be talking about next?
Good lead-in.
It is a good lead-in. But this Ubuntu Studio, I mean, if you're an audio engineer, musician, graphic designer, video producer, live streamer, everything you need is in this one flavor of Ubuntu. But by default, just go with your version 25, Questing Quokka, and install that on your PC hardware. And I think as a Mac user, you would find yourself very comfortable in that environment. Now, Linux Mint is, as you said, Darren, a very good choice. Why or how would you describe Linux Mint to someone who's coming from the Mac platform?
I would go with what you said, actually, which is that Mint in its default installation state is very close to a Windows experience. So if you're coming from Windows, say, for instance, you have Windows 10 and you don't want to move to Windows 11, and there aren't many options out there for you apart from buying a new computer, then Linux Mint would be an ideal thing to install on your existing machine, and you'll feel right at home because it does feel very homely for Windows users.
Yeah.
But having said that, it's very, very customizable, and without installing any software at all, you can pop into the settings and make it behave very Mac-like indeed, especially with support for virtual desktops, which is traditionally good in Linux, but is very customizable in Mint, which is the customization of it is nice out of the box. So that's the other good thing about Mint, is that it's got a very, very good out of the box experience without installing any little trinkets and bits and pieces to change how it works. You can just pop into settings, click a few buttons, and you can drastically change how it behaves and configure it the way you want it to.
Yeah.
And going with that is multi-touch gestures, because one of the things we're used to on the Mac is for this all to just work. It comes with a multi-touch gesture device on every system. They're pre-configured. All the gestures are there for you to just choose and click in settings to choose which gestures do what things with virtual desktops. And Mint is one of the only distros to have that all baked in from the get-go. So from an out-of-the-box experience, you can go in and configure your multi-touch gestures with virtual desktops without installing any software. So just go to visit settings and you're good to go. And the other major benefit for me for Mint especially is its stability, because quite a few Linux distros have been known in the past, not mentioning any names, but have been known in the past to sort of murderize themselves when they run their own update process with their own updates, which is bad. I mean, that's the number one thing in my book. If an operating system can't survive applying its own updates, then that's it. That's the line in the sand. I've written that off the list. So Mint has proven itself to be the most stable, which is, I think, very important, just stability. And the other thing I like about Mint is linked to that is its update manager. So it has a particularly good implementation of applying new updates and discovering new updates. And it does that really seamlessly, nice and fast. It checks for updates and so on. And it guides you through installing the updates. And the update experience is better on Mint than I think on most other distributions. So that's why I like Mint.
And I think you raised some very good points, and probably a reason, probably why we should mention what I'm about to mention is that we may be focusing on some of the more popular distros of Linux, Ubuntu, and Mint, and we shouldn't. Well, we will just gloss over the fact that there are myriad distros out there that purport to mimic the look and feel of macOS, or purport to mimic the look and feel of Windows. I mean, sometimes right down to, pixel perfect icons that look exactly as they do on the source operating systems. But I would strongly argue in favor of Ubuntu or Mint for all the reasons that you just gave. Very good update mechanisms that hardly ever fail on you. I have never had a problem with either Ubuntu or Mint outright failing on me after an update. Their App Store ecosystems are very strong. And when you have distros that try to mimic what you get in Mac OS or mimic what you get in Windows, some of those mechanisms tend to either fall flat or become very confusing when you're thrown into an alternate way of working that doesn't feel familiar to the source operating system that they're trying to look and feel like. So hardware compatibility, upgradability, stability, and app stores are all very important to have, and both Ubuntu and Linux Mint provide that, and both provide it very, very well. So I think that's kind of where we're coming from when we mention those. Yeah, they're very common. Yeah, they may not be your favorite, but when you're,
that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to have stability. It's a good thing to have a strong app store within the operating system, and it's a good thing to have excellent hardware support. I rarely have any issue identifying hardware with either of those operating systems. It can happen, but then again, it can happen on Windows or the Mac as well. So, as with any operating system, just be prepared for the fact that you may need to do a little research to get some weird piece of hardware or maybe a non-mainstream Wi-Fi card working in Mint or Ubuntu or whatever distro you decide to go with. So we do agree on
that's another reason to go for Ubuntu or Mint and some of the mainstream distros, if you are thinking of exploring the Linux world, is community support. As you were saying that if you go online to find out why something isn't working, the answers you'll get back are likely going to work first time in either Linux Mint or Ubuntu because you've got really good community support. And in some of the lesser known distributions, you may not get any support at all.
And the communities may be a bit friendlier to newcomers as well.
Yeah.
Often in some of the more techie type distros and their communities, the response may be RTFM. And
read the manual.
If you don't know what RTFM means, it is essentially what Darren said. Go read the manual. Go, they take the time to put in a reply that says, well, here's a link that explains it, instead of just explaining it. Just explain it. It's often just as easy to give a simple explanation to help somebody out than it is to offhandedly toss a link in a forum and move on your way. You're in a forum. Help them. And I think that you are going to find that to be the case with both of those more often than not than you are to be told to look elsewhere, as it were.
That's it. Yeah, I think you get quite a nice, a similar friendly response from those maintainers of those operating systems than you would in a similar way to you get friendly responses from the Mac community. We're very keen on helping each other, and you want to find something similar to anything you would want to move to.
Yeah.
And that may also include you having, say, a second machine or a third machine. So maybe you have a household where you have a guest computer and for people to use, or a guest tablet, for instance. You may not want to pass them your latest and greatest machine that you use every day yourself. You might want to pass them something that is designed for a guest to jump onto and use. And this would be an ideal situation to have a machine set up with one of the versions of Linux, or say even a replacement tablet with a version of Linux, which is possible to find. It's a bit tricky to find, but it is possible.
It is possible. And you raise a good point, too. We talked about some new hardware that you might consider in a world without Apple, but the beauty about an operating system like Linux is how lightweight and ultra compatible it can be, or can be made to be. And when it comes to things like guest computers, don't discount that 2012 iMac sitting in the corner.
Yeah,
That
perfect.
can very, very easily run Linux Mint or Ubuntu,
Yes.
and then upon installation, instantly be up to date, instantly be made into a computer that would be absolutely perfect for a guest computer. Someone to just sit down, browse the web, check their email, do whatever they need to do, or even edit a video or two if they need to. It's a very powerful operating system, but with that power comes ultra compatibility. And you don't have to throw out that old iMac just because it won't run the latest Mac OS. So if
Put Mint on it.
for some reason you can't or don't want to go purchase new hardware in a world without Apple, there's going to be, I hope, plenty of old hardware left over after the mighty Elephanzilla comes tromping through that you can adopt and bring up to date with something like Linux. But it doesn't matter what operating system we run if we can't run the software that we need to run to be productive. So that brings us to app replacements. And when I approach this, as I mentioned earlier, I'm looking for apps that are cross-platform and will run on a Mac right now so that if, as you're listening to this, you say, hey, I would like to explore that app replacement, you can do so. So any of the apps that I'm going to mention are apps that you can actually go download, install on your Mac, and start playing with right away, and maybe even adopt and turn into your day-to-day app so that in a world with Mighty Elephanzilla, you can switch over to another platform much more easily.
So, and keep the software that you got used to using,
Keep the software that you got used to using. So where would you start? I think the basics are probably important. Browser and email. That's about as basic as you can get. What would be your pick for browser app replacement for Safari?
Well, I would go with your favorite, which is Firefox.
Firefox.
You will probably, you will find that in the vast majority of Linux distributions, if you were to explore the world of Linux, you'll find that the default installed browser is already Firefox.
Yeah.
So in a way, you're already set up. So in the same sort of way that you would receive a Mac and it has Safari on it, and you use that as your browser, and that is a very good choice, I would say. But I'm biased because I like Safari. But in the same way that you would receive or you would build a replacement machine, a PC, or a laptop running a Linux distribution, that comes with Firefox, and you would use that as the default out of the box because it's there pre-installed, ready to go, ready configured. And in the same way, I think I would also do the same with email and go with Mozilla's email client as well. So you,
Thunderbird,
mixing both of them the same. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
as you say, you can download that now on your Mac and see how it is to use, and you may find that you prefer it, and you might want to switch to that. So if you did switch away from the Mac at some point, you could take your software with you and use Firefox and Mozilla's email.
And I will say, a full disclosure, Thunderbird is my default mail client. Firefox is my default browser. I don't think there's much other choice. Well, there is choice. Okay, let's be clear. There is choice when it comes to email clients.
Yeah.
In my opinion, there isn't much other choice than Mozilla Thunderbird. I think that is a fantastic email client. It's a powerful email client. It's very flexible in terms of how you not only work with it, but how you would like it to look. And when you do run it on the Mac, it is very compatible with just about any email service that you might throw at it, including your Apple contacts. Your Apple contacts will appear in it just like they appear in Apple Mail. So it's a wonderful email client. I find it far better than Apple Mail. which is why I use it as my default. I would definitely avoid things like Microsoft Outlook, whether it's Outlook Online or what have you. Outlook is not available on Linux anyway, but I would definitely avoid that in favor of something like Thunderbird. Or you could even give the built-in default mail client a try if you want to, but oftentimes, as you pointed out, Darren, Thunderbird is the default mail client on many Linux distros. As far as browsers are concerned, almost every single one of the browsers that we've mentioned here on the show in the past as being some of the best in terms of privacy and security, like Firefox, are also available on Linux. So that would be things like Brave and LibreWolf and DuckDuckGo and Chrome. Although I think, can you get Chrome or only Chromium on Linux? I can't.
You can get
remember.
both.
I think you can get both.
You usually find that Chromium is available in the app stores of Linux distributions, but Chrome isn't. So you would then go to the website of Chrome to download the Linux version of Chrome because it's not defaulted in the app store. But both are available.
It's not something I normally install on a Linux distro, so that's why I wanted to ask.
No.
And Edge. I believe there's a version of Edge for Linux as well.
You can install Edge and also install Edge on the Mac if you want to, yes.
But if you're going to install Edge, you might as well install Chromium or DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo is Chromium-based, isn't it? DuckDuckGo is Chromium-based. So if you're going to put a Chromium-based browser on Linux, probably go with DuckDuckGo. LibreWolf is Firefox-based, and Brave is... I don't know. Brave is also Chromium, I think. But Firefox.
Oh, there's one other point I was going to mention on your choices of, or both of our choices of web browser and email.
Yeah.
Is as Mac users, we're very used to very easily configuring this and going into settings and going to the online account section and filling in the login details for your provider and so on. And it just working in all of your pre-installed software.
Yeah.
Well, that is also just to make a point that is also available in both Ubuntu and Linux Mint, where you can pop into settings and go to the online account section, fill those things in, and the pre-installed email software and browser will pick up your online configurations from there.
Very true.
And work in a quite similar way to how the Mac does things.
That's the
I don't know who did it first.
That's the beauty about the Mac and Linux and Windows, is that all of these operating system
Windows
developers
doesn't do that.
definitely... What's that?
Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. I was just very meanly saying that Windows doesn't do that. If you go into configurations on Windows, you can't just set up your online accounts and have them
you
work
can't.
with
No, you can't. But my point was going to be that all of these operating system developers do tend to feed off of each other. So as good ideas get brought into different operating systems, like virtual desktops. The very first place I encountered virtual desktops was on Linux.
Was in Linux, yeah, absolutely.
And then later, OS X, and then later, eventually, Windows.
Eventually Windows.
And eventually you find that most of these good ideas tend to make their way to all the operating systems. And so one of these days, Microsoft will figure out that, hey, it's a good idea to have an online account section in system settings. Maybe we should do that and support other platforms other than our own.
That's it.
But again, it's not in their DNA, so they kind of have to be forced into bringing it into their operating system. But Office Suite. To me, this is almost a no-brainer. Again, like Firefox and Thunderbird, LibreOffice is pretty much my go-to when it comes to Office suites. Not only on Linux, but it's a fantastic Office suite on the Mac. And one of the things I love about it, absolutely love about it, and one of the reasons it's a good install on a Mac, is that it can open much, much older, long dead formats, including WordPerfect and iWork. iWork '09 files can be opened in LibreOffice, WordStar,
very nice,
and tons of others. It has very broad compatibility with older document formats. So if you have a lot of old documents sitting around and you haven't figured out how to get them open, download the free LibreOffice suite.
Give LibreOffice a try. Yeah.
There will be a link to it in the show notes, and give it a try. And in terms of installing it, and it is often installed by default on Linux as well.
Yes, it
but
is.
One important thing to note, and I tested this just to make sure I wasn't misremembering. One important thing to note is that LibreOffice can open current editions of Pages and Numbers documents. And like any time you're opening one format in another app, there may be some formatting issues depending on the document. But pretty much every document that I opened before we started recording opened perfectly in LibreOffice. Pages and Numbers both. I'll admit I did not try Keynote. But one interesting thing about LibreOffice is that it will open PDFs as well. So it's a very flexible, very compatible Office suite. It has its own open document format, but then it can also open and save the, quote, standard, non-standard, non-open Microsoft
Popular
formats as well. The Doc and XLS or DocX and XLSX and
you can actually configure LibreOffice to always save in those formats, which is quite handy because it's especially useful. It's even quite useful for us as Mac users as well. If you have to make a change to one of these files and resave it and send it back to someone so that they can change it again, resave it and send it back, then doing so in LibreOffice, where you can keep this file format the same throughout the so there's no conversions needed.
Right.
And that makes things that makes the process a lot smoother if you're collaborating with someone. So for collaboration with Office formats, LibreOffice is excellent, whether you're using a Mac or whether you're using Linux.
Out of the virtual box, as it were, LibreOffice works very much like Pages and Numbers and Keynote in that it defaults to the open document format. And if you need to exchange documents with someone else, you need to do a save as and get it out into another format and send it to them, and then they send it back to you and blah, 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 all that stuff. But if you can, as you said, set it to default in Doc or Excel or PowerPoint format, that eliminates that step. It's actually a feature I would love Pages, Numbers, and Keynotes to have to allow me to open a Word document and then save it back out without doing the whole export process, but that will never happen. So LibreOffice is great, fantastic Office suite, free Office suite. If you have not given it a try on your Mac, it's definitely worth a download to have as an alternative to Pages and Numbers.
Entirely free.
I'd give it a look, LibreOffice.org. Again, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Photos is a little trickier. Photos is trickier only because Apple likes to take the pictures, all of our collective memories of times gone by, and stick them into a database. And it's a database file that unless you know you can right-click it and show the package contents, you might think that your photos have gone in and will never come back out again. But the truth is they're in there. They're in there in a folder called the Originals folder. And if you can export all of your pictures and get them over to your new platform, you can, especially if you export them into folders so that they're organized in some reasonable way, you can use something like Darktable or Digicam.
Yes, Darktable.
Darktable and Digicam are both fantastic photo management and editing tools that are open source and available on all the major platforms that you might consider downloading and giving a try. Again, not to go into major detail about them, but Darktable might be a little bit more like Lightroom and Digicam might be a little bit more like Photos, but they're both wonderful apps, and those are probably the two I would pick. Do you have a different choice when it comes to managing photos?
No, those are the two I was actually going to mention and pick myself. The only other stipulation would be because iCloud Photo Library behaves as a cloud syncing service between multiple devices, you would have to pair your software choice there with a cloud storage so you could do the syncing. And then you would have a slight difficulty marrying that up with the phone. So if you had that software, which is excellent software, say Darktable on your Linux machine, even syncing changes and edits back to a cloud store of your photos, in a sense mimicking some of what iCloud Photo Library sort of does, you'd come unstuck a bit because the phone would be using different software to save different files in different locations, and you might have trouble there trying to link that up to the same cloud library. And when the changes to each other, you could end up with all sorts of interesting clashes going on. So it's not quite so. It's okay from looking at one device point of view and one sync location, but when you're involving lots of multiple devices, possibly multiple bits of software, and having them sync between each other, it becomes quickly painful to try and figure out how on earth to set this up. Whereas we're used to this all working out of the box for ourselves. We just buy an iPhone, buy a Mac, and whenever you take a photo, it miraculously appears on the Mac because they're all set up to talk to each other and sync to each other out of the box. Whereas outside of Apple's world, that isn't true unless you specifically use specific bits of software on your desktop.
Yes, that's a good point. And the thought that occurs to me is that we have been told that this is the way we want to work, and so we work that way. But traditionally, we don't work that way. Traditionally, we have offloaded our photos to one primary computer, and then that's where the photo library was, and we manage those photos with something like iPhoto or Digicam or Darktable. Now, to your point, though, of syncing, and we'll talk about cloud replacements in just a little bit, but most, if not all, cloud replacement services will sync your files, including your photos, to one particular location on your computer. So if you are running a cloud replacement service app on your phone, and that is syncing to that service, and then you are likewise syncing from that service to your computer, that data, those photos in particular, will be syncing to a particular folder on your computer. And then with Digicam or Darktable, you can simply point to that folder as your default. So unlike photos, they don't depend upon a monolithic data file or data library to store all your pictures. You can point them anywhere on your computer that you'd like to. So if you're syncing to a particular folder on your computer, you can then point Digicam or Darktable to that folder and then edit and maintain those photos just like you would if they were in a photos library. It is different. It's a different process, but you can kind of mimic the look and feel of photos and syncing to iCloud by using an alternative cloud service and syncing to a particular location on your computer first, then pointing your photo management tool to it later. Most photo management tools don't work like photos. Most of them that I've played with want to be pointed somewhere. They want to be pointed to a folder on your computer, and then you just say, "This is where my pictures are," and they're like, "Okay, cool."
However, we are used to, as Mac users, we are used to working. So, say for instance, you take a photo on your phone, that syncs to the cloud, and then you edit it on your Mac, and you make a change. then you can revert that change on the phone, not on the Mac that you made that change on. Whereas if you try to do revert revisions using different software and the same cloud source, then it will quickly fall apart and your revisions won't be there.
Well, it depends on the
Whereas we're used to the revisions being there on the Mac.
Yeah, and we'll mention the cloud services in just a moment, but Dropbox offers revisions. So you could...
No, I don't mean file revisions. I mean revisions within the photo itself. So like the number of changes and edits you've made within that photo. Yeah, that's where the database structure of photos comes in useful, because you've got that those list of edits within the photo itself that you could you can step back on, whereas you can't do that on any other system.
But that's where apps like Darktable come in, because like Lightroom, they don't modify the originals. They instead take the modifications that you're making to the photo and store them in a little text file that gets saved alongside the photo, so that when you open that picture, it looks at that text file and says, oh, okay, these are the modifications I need to apply. And it applies those modifications on the fly, as it were, as you're opening up that picture. So you can effectively revert.
But yes, if you open that picture, though, on a machine that isn't running Darktable, then it doesn't apply those
doesn't recognize
changes.
It. Yeah, no, you're right.
Exactly, yeah. So you don't get those revisions in order that you've changed.
Yeah. But
whereas with Apple system, on all their devices, they do know about all those revisions to the photos, and they can revert each other's changes from any device at any stage.
And, just to be devil's advocate here, I appreciate all of that. I think that's cool that you can do that across devices. And I would wager that there's a way to do it in alternate ecosystems. But in the scenario that you've presented, how many people actually do that? How important is that functionality?
Well, I do, but
I know you do,
a good point.
And I do to a certain extent. Yes. But to me, the ability to edit photos on my phone is moot. I don't ever do it. I don't ever edit photos on my phone. I do edit them on the Mac, and I appreciate that those edits make it back to my phone. But if they didn't, would I care? And I think the answer is no, I wouldn't care. But it does.
When iCloud Photo Library first came out, I was amazed, because I was looking for some sort of way of doing this sort of thing. And lo and behold, when Apple announced iCloud Photo Library and what it's capable of, it was like, oh, this is photography nirvana. This is amazing. This is what I've been hoping for and trying to look for and implement for years, and I've never managed to do it properly. So yeah, I mean, you're right though. If you were able to run a Darktable compatible version on a mobile device, say you had an iPad equivalent as well, because I do a lot of photo editing on the iPad too. So not just on the Mac, but also the iPad, and between the two of them staying in sync with all their changes. If you were able to run Darktable on more than just the desktop, then that would be pretty good, because it would pick up those changes in that text file that you were mentioning.
Yeah. Which brings up another excellent point. If that type of functionality is super important to you, then maybe Darktable or Digicam are not the best solution, and instead the best solution is to look at the, let's be honest, myriad cloud photo services that are out there that are not iCloud photos, that you do upload your pictures to and do track revisions, and then all you need is a browser to access them. Or in the case of iOS or Android or whatever, an equivalent app that would recognize those changes. And that's probably it. And perhaps one of the solutions that I'm going to mention for cloud services in just a bit would be the answer to that. And that would be worth investigating to see if it is.
Okay.
But so photos. There are standalone apps you can get to run on your alternate platform that would do the job, but might fall short in certain areas like revisions. and the ability to not modify originals unless you come up with some new way of working that's not maybe quite as seamless as Apple's way of working.
That's it. You'd have to figure out a new workflow for that.
But when it comes to editing photos, let's see what I did there. When it comes to editing photos, some of the creative apps you might look at, and all of these are Mac compatible, by the way. Some of the creative apps you might look at would be GIMP for photo and bitmap manipulation, Inkscape for vector art, and Scribus for desktop publishing. Now, all of those have been around forever. They are well supported. They have excellent communities surrounding them. And many of them, including GIMP, have a wonderful ecosystem of third-party add-ons that you can install in them. In some cases, you can even install Photoshop add-ons into them and take advantage of those. So those are three great choices for that trifecta of photo editing, vector editing, and desktop publishing. In my case, I use the Affinity apps, Affinity Photo, Designer, and Publisher, which are now just called Affinity, by the way, which plenty of podcasts have talked about. I thought about talking about it, but let's just put it this way. The free package of Affinity apps that you can download right now is fantastic, pretty stable. The biggest difference is that it has a new file format and you can't save back, but that's not unusual for an app of this type. And probably my biggest problem with it is that because Affinity is now owned by Canva, it requires a Canva account to, quote, activate the software. But once you've signed in with that account, you do not need to stay online. You do not need the account to use the software. You do not need to pay anything to Canva to use the software. It's completely free. Even before, at $150 for the suite of apps, it was a wonderful deal. You can't beat free. And best of all, if you do have the old apps, you can keep those on your Mac. You can run them alongside the new app. And I think the only other issue I had with it, and this was the issue whenever I upgraded Adobe's Creative Suite, whenever I upgraded the Affinity apps in the past, they do not bring forward your preferences for how you like your tools to be arranged on screen. So
fair enough. Yeah.
My quick tip there is open up your old apps, take a screenshot of what they look like, import that screenshot into the new app, and then use that screenshot as a basis for lining up your tools the way that you like them in the new Affinity suite. But if you've not gotten it,
yes,
and you have...
Well, I must do that myself. So
it's
I've got
handy. Super handy.
I've got Affinity Photo, but I need to download the new one and do what you suggest.
I had all three before. I loved all three before, and there are some features, and we'll delve into this in a future episode, but there are some features of the new Affinity app that just were not there in the previous apps that folks had been asking for years, and it's finally there. So lots of cool stuff in it. Definitely worth getting. And I would say get it. So in the world of Linux, however, Affinity has been very, very clear, no matter how many times they've been asked. In fact, they were asked during the live stream when they introduced the Affinity suite.
Oh, no.
When will the Linux version come out? And they said there are no plans for a Linux edition. So,
indeed,
if you are switching to another platform and that platform is not Windows, and GIMP and Inkscape and Scribus don't do it for you, you can't be looking at Affinity for answers, because at the moment they have sworn there will not be a version of it. So there you go. Another great app, by the way, for painting, raster or bitmap type painting, is Krita, Krita. That's another fantastic open source app for that. And then other creative apps you might consider. Some of these come with that Ubuntu Studio. Some of them do not. I was just kind of going through a list in my head of what is Mac compatible and might be a great choice in this alternative world of ours would be Audacity, which I do use for audio editing. Ardor, A-R-D-O-R, Ardor, which is also a DAW for editing audio. Kden Live or KDEN Live. Kden Live, I don't know how you pronounce
Live,
it.
yeah, that's it.
That's for video editing. So that would be your iMovie / Final Cut Pro replacement. Or perhaps an even better analog to Final Cut Pro would be DaVinci Resolve, which itself is not, to my knowledge, open source.
If you can install it.
Oh, it installs very easily. I've never had
on
some
Linux distributions, it can be a challenge where you end up with a black screen and your computer never turning on again.
Another good reason to stick with Ubuntu or Linux Mint or something that is going to be well known by the developers and well supported.
Exactly.
But DaVinci Resolve is another great choice, and that's from Blackmagic Design. And then for something like I'm using here, Ecamm Live. Obviously, Ecamm Live is a Mac app, and I would be very sad if I could no longer run it. But OBS Studio would be your open source alternative to something like Ecamm Live. And then, heck, let's not forget that Blender, which is an amazing 3D content creation suite, is available on Linux as well. So.
Absolutely. You can make your next feature film.
Your next feature film in 3D. Be the next
in
Pixar.
3D in Blender, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Be the next Steve Jobs at
Pixar.
Yeah, and get Blender. But what else would you add to that list before we move on to cloud replacements, Darren?
This is the tricky thing, because I think you've exhausted everything there. I think you've managed to cover pretty much everything. I can't think of anything else now.
I'm sorry. We did get a good recommendation from Brian in the chat. He says, in terms of a similar ecosystem to what we have with iCloud Photos, he recommends Amazon's photo service. And I will admit, I have not used that. I have had the Amazon app syncing pictures to there, and then I forget that they're there. But he says Amazon's photo service is a great replacement, which would be a cloud service that you could then use on any platform. So excellent suggestion. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion. If you're already paying an Amazon subscription, you may as well make as much use of it as you can, because I think that includes photo sync as well, in the same way that I've adopted Amazon Music, because I can also use that with the same subscription. So one subscription and 3 services.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Some of them they charge a little bit more for. Amazon Music, there's an extra charge. And
only if you want to listen to your albums in order. If you don't mind them not being in order, which I don't mind, then it's free.
And if you want the extra music that you don't own, whatever that is,
no. Actually, I can listen to lots of things I don't own.
Well, sure. I mean, but what do they call it? It's Amazon. Amazon,
it's the whole library. Yes,
Prime,
it's not the entire library, but it's quite big.
Widdly diddly, all the songs in the world. That's like $10 a month or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't
you get
care.
a surprisingly good you get a surprisingly good range of music that's available. That you have to not play it in order. But within the cost of the subscription you're already paying, you get a surprisingly good music service for paying no extra.
So is that
your to explore?
So I had a couple other things to talk about first in terms of cloud replacements. But if you're looking for a replacement for Amazon Music, or I'm sorry, for Apple Music, would Amazon Music be your choice?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that conversation's over. Photos. So we've been talking about photos. We've been talking about services that you can sync your photos to. There are so many apps that will very happily sync your photos from your iPhone to their cloud service, including Dropbox, Flickr, Amazon Photos, as Brian mentioned, Google Photos. All of those will sync to it. When I mentioned those just now, I think the key, as I mentioned at the start of this conversation, was that I would be looking for the broadest compatibility. In other words, something I know will work from a phone and will work from my device, whatever that device happens to be.
Yes.
And I think those are all fantastic choices. I do have another suggestion that I'll talk about as kind of a wrap up to cloud services, but I'll save that for a few moments. Are there any other cloud photo services that you might mention as being good alternatives that you've used?
Not really. The only thing I would probably mention is uh, my provider for email and calendaring and so on is Microsoft, which I like. I currently don't pay anything to them, but that one of the interesting things I've been looking into recently is to simplify and replace my file storage system. As you know, I've had some woes with my NAS and various other hard disk failures and things, and I finally had enough with that. So I'm looking at thinking, well, I already use Microsoft services, and they, for a very small and reasonable fee, it's quite excellent actually. You can pay yearly to upgrade my Microsoft service that I currently use for nothing, and include a nice generous amount of cloud storage, and also make use of some of the other things that Microsoft lets you do if you do store your info in their cloud service, which is enhanced media sharing and media controls. There's some very, very nice media control sharing side of things.
Right.
So if you share an album of photos with someone, they get an extremely nicely formatted web link, which allows them to view said photos and interact with the things that you've shared entirely on the web. It's very, very, very nicely presented. It's one of the better ways of sharing photos and so on. So I have used their photo sharing. So Microsoft is perhaps another option to store your photos, as at least a location to sync them to.
I am never endingly tickled that you absolutely refuse to use something like Google Workspace, but you will instead use Microsoft. And I'm kind of the reverse. I would much rather use Google Workspace than ever use Microsoft's cloud service. But that said, those are personal preferences. Those are preferences that have been built up over many, many years of being in the tech industry and developing these visceral responses towards certain services that may not be warranted anymore in 2025. And yet, like my disdain for HP personal computers, that is based upon my experience with HP personal computers from 15 years ago. Over 15 years ago.
You would probably like my my choice of laptop. So when I was looking at what the replacement for my iMac would be, and then also looking at what the replacement for my iPad would be, I also thought, well, perhaps you could replace both of them with a particular laptop and then just dock that laptop in desktop mode or mobile mode. And my choice of laptop wasn't Dell, and it wasn't HP actually. It was actually Framework. This was a very particular one because I was very interested in the Framework ARM-based laptops, which then brings us down the road of the more complexities in the choices of operating system as well, and just to choose a version of Linux to run on ARM. So there you go. There's another thing to think about.
Well, and interestingly, I wasn't really considering cloud email and calendaring services when I thought about this, because if you are using a cloud service for your contacts and calendars and stuff, it may be iCloud, and I guess I should have thought of it.
Indeed, yeah.
But in my
So if
case,
those elephants went through the data centers,
they
then
did.
you've no longer
And
got, indeed.
in my case, it's not iCloud. It never has been iCloud. And
No, same here.
I've always used alternative services. So that's why that idea didn't come to me. But it's a very good point. And I think we can run down the list quite quickly here. That if you're looking for an alternative service, there are the free ones. There is Outlook.com. There is Gmail. There are other free services. And if you have a website, your hosting provider may also provide similar services that you just may not be aware of because you never had a need to use them. But if you do have a domain and you want to associate your email with that domain and you want to have your contacts and calendars and other things associated with that account, some of the services you might look at do include Darren's much loved Google Workspace. You've got Microsoft Office 365 or Microsoft 365, whatever they're calling it these days. You've got Zoho, which is another cloud
Zoho Desktop, they're good. Yeah,
service
good
provider. You've got
Proton.
Oh,
yeah, there we go.
Another, yep, that's another fantastic service. So there are literally tons of services that can do that for you. And because they're all cloud-based, the platform from which you access them doesn't matter so much. So if we're not accessing it from a Mac because of Mighty Elephanzilla, then these services will continue to work as they worked before.
Yeah.
However,
you're unaffected.
If you're on iCloud, you will be affected, in which case iCloud for most users, not all users, but most users is a free service. So in that case, you would be looking at an alternative free service. And to keep things simple and without going down the mighty rat hole of all the different free email services that are out there,
wow,
some simple ones would be Gmail and Outlook.com and even Yahoo if you care to endanger your data. No, I'm not a fan of Yahoo services, but
yeah, I know what you mean. One of the things you do have to be careful of is your internet provider's service, because often it looks like they provide things like that, but when you look into it, they only provide an email inbox. They don't provide calendaring, syncing services or contact services to go with it. Some of them will just provide email only. And I don't know about you, but I like to have my email, calendaring and contacts together in one service rather than spread them across different services.
And I will only comment that that is changing. That more and more providers are offering those additional services, sometimes in partnership with Microsoft or Google, admittedly. But I recently discovered that one of the cloud virtual private server services that I use with my clients is also offering a pro level email as well as like a whole suite of applications, including calendaring and contacts and things like that. So sometimes they'll surprise you. And the cost is often much, much lower than it would be for Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, which are going up and up and up in price, all in the name of AI, because they think we all want it and we don't, but they're charging us more because they offer it. People leaving Google Workspace and leaving Microsoft 365 is more often because the prices are going up and they're finding these alternative services that often work better, at least work the same, but often work better and yet provide the same or similar functionality. So lots of services out there. The research into them is up to you as a user. But that's definitely what I'd look at in terms of cloud services.
And do make sure you look into the tiers of what you're paying for, because you may have a cheaper option that you can move to. Exactly. Not even increasing storage space. Sometimes you might, say for instance, I watched a video from someone who was paying for Office 365 because they thought they needed the Office apps locally installed on their computer. but they barely used them.
Right.
But they didn't realize that there was a cheaper tier that offers those in the cloud instead for much less money. So you could save an awful lot of money and still have a paid for mail service and also paid for cloud storage, but without the need for downloading the Office apps to your computer, because there's a cheaper tier available. They just weren't aware of the different tiers that you could choose.
Yeah, that is one company that's very good about being as opaque as possible when it comes to what their different tiers provide.
Of course.
and Google's another one. I will admit, Google's another one.
Yes.
File storage. File storage is another tricky bit. Almost seems like it might be easier. The services that came to my mind, of course, are Dropbox and Box. Box is a service that's been around a long time. They used to be called Box.net.
Yeah.
Now they're just called Box.
Yeah.
In fact, I referenced Box a few times early on. This is interesting. Early on, I produced a number of quick tip sheets for Mac Guys Only, and we talked about replacing Mobile Me with alternative services.
Oh,
and Box was one of the services, or Box.net was one of the services that I mentioned, and how to sync your calendars and contacts by way of Box. So that would be another service. And then, Google Drive. You might also consider services like Spider Oak. C-File is another one I have heard of. None of these are recommendations, by the way. SyncThing. And then, speaking of Microsoft, OneDrive. OneDrive is another cloud service that you might consider if you're looking for an alternative to iCloud. What about rolling your own? Have you rolled your own cloud file service, Darren, like Nextcloud or OwnCloud? Both of them are fantastic choices.
No, I haven't. They look interesting, although I'm going away from the idea of managing my own hardware suite to do all of this, and my own drives, setups, and so on. So I'm more inclined nowadays to think I want to move away from my own physical storage and go all in on the cloud. And like you said earlier, that one of the choices there I've picked up on, because I already use Microsoft services for my email provider, as my email provider. They've got quite a nice tier that I looked into, and I think that's what I'm going to go for. They charge yearly as well, so that you often get a saving if you pay yearly. And for a rather modest £20 per year, 20 Great British pounds, they will offer you 100 gig of cloud storage, and that's plenty for me to start me off with. I can always increase that later if I find the need, but that means effectively that's £1.66 per month. I'll be paying from OneDrive to handle all of my cloud file storage, and that also means it's very easy for me to integrate that not only within my Apple ecosystem with all my devices, especially the Mac, but also with Windows machines and Linux machines as well, because OneDrive is available anywhere and everywhere. And they also have a rather nice web-based cloud management system for your files. So you've got a nice file manager within a web browser. So they've got a nice option there as well. So you're pretty much covered for anything you would want to use. And I think as a rather nice, a good introductory price will only cost me 20 Great British pounds to get in on the ladder there. So that's what I'm interested in going for.
Yeah. OneDrive, by the way, I should also mention, since you're talking about the £1.66 per month, if you subscribe, and I believe you have to subscribe to this tier to get this, but if you subscribe to the Microsoft 365 tier that includes the desktop apps, you get 1 terabyte I think it's a
Indeed,
full
yes, you get a
terabyte of OneDrive
terabyte of
storage.
exactly, yes, as
Yeah.
part. So if it makes sense for you to also want to have the full Office suite downloaded on your system and to make use of everything that Microsoft Office has to offer, then essentially you get a free terabyte of cloud storage that comes with that. It's no extra. So yes, that's an excellent deal.
Just remember, those apps don't work on Linux.
Yes, although you can use the web versions. The web versions of Office are quite good.
The Nextcloud, OwnCloud, roll your own suggestion that I asked you about. Keep in mind, too, you don't need to maintain your own hardware for that. There are a lot of cloud hosting services that will host your Nextcloud
fair
or
enough.
OwnCloud
Okay, I didn't know that. So
service.
that's quite a good option.
You can roll your own, but foist the maintenance of the hardware off upon someone else.
That sounds good.
But I did want to recommend something that you just now very clearly said you are getting away from, and that is something like a Synology NAS.
Yes.
There are a couple models, and one of the reasons I feel comfortable mentioning them again is because there was a lot of brouhaha last year, or earlier this year, I think it was earlier this year, where Synology released a new line of NASs that would only work with their own hard drives.
Yes.
And a lot of people were quite upset by that, as you can imagine.
Quite upset about that, yes.
Because basically their hard drives are just rebranded name brand hard drives. I can't remember if they're Toshiba or
Seagate,
maybe they're Seagate.
Or something like that.
Maybe they're Seagate, I'm not
something
sure.
Like that, yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Stick your sticker on it. All they did was stick their sticker on it.
They were requiring you to purchase their own rebranded hardware. And if it wasn't in there, well, good luck getting it all to work. Well, they released a firmware update just a month or so ago that said, guess what? We changed our mind because people weren't buying our NASs anymore. So, so now I feel comfortable mentioning them. And I would mention Synology over another darling of the home NAS world right now, which is Ugreen. I mentioned Synology over Ugreen only because Ugreen lacks one very specific piece of functionality that Synology does very, very well, and that is mimic the functionality of Dropbox. By installing the Synology Drive app on your Mac and your phone and or your Windows computer or whatnot, you get functionality.
Host your own cloud.
Yeah, you get your own file storage cloud that works very much like Dropbox does, or Box or Google Drive or any of those, and even integrates very, very nicely into the location section of the Finder. I like that, and Ugreen does not offer anything like that at all, which is a bit of a bummer.
Big advantage, yeah.
But everything else that would make someone say, yeah, I think I'm going to think about this Synology NAS or Ugreen NAS idea, or whatever, QNAP NAS or whatever, somebody that might think about it, the mimicking of something like Google Photos or Flickr or, any of these Amazon Photos or any of these cloud photo storage services where the photos on your phone are automatically syncing there and then can be synced back to your primary computing device, that functionality is there. The file storage is there. The contact and calendar and mail you can even host on it if you want to. You can host a Nextcloud or an OwnCloud on it. You can host virtual machines on it. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with it to completely eliminate these third-party service charges from your life. And as the cost of Dropbox goes up and up and up, I mean, we're at $119 a year now is what I'm paying for it. And I would very happily give that up if I could apply that $119 a year towards hardware that I own and can maintain and can assure is running and backed up. So in terms, and Office apps. There's even a cloud-based Office apps that you can run off your Synology NAS. So there's lots of stuff you can do with it. that you might have to use multiple alternate services for, and would make a great alternative for iCloud, for example, including music libraries. You can do that too. And movie libraries. Music
that's
and
one thing
movies,
I was going to ask, actually.
and all this stuff. You can do all of that when you have your own, effectively a mini server. You know, it's a little tiny toaster-sized server that you're running in your house. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, because your hardware is going to start somewhere around $400 plus the drives, plus a backup drive, because don't forget, it's a computer. You need to back it up just like you would any other computer. Don't trust backing up to the cloud. And it would be a nice drop-in replacement for some of these other cloud services that we are talking about. So if you were to move to something like that now, while you're on a Mac, before the mighty Elephanzilla comes in and destroys the entire world of Apple and we can no longer be Apple users, moving to it now would help prepare you for that horrible, horrible future. Did I mention that the mighty Elephanzilla can also spit fire from its trunk? I didn't mention that, but it can. No. It can. So this is, it's a world that we may not want to live in, but it's a world we may have to live in.
No, we might end up with bigger problems than just the lack of Apple if such elephants existed.
I'm thinking so. So that's an alternative. That is an episode in and of itself. But moving on from that, to wrap up the conversation, or move on to the next phase of the conversation, I know you wanted to talk about phones. And
okay, yes, that's the tricky one. Yeah,
it can be tricky. I don't think it's as tricky as you might make it out to be. And I do have a question for you about one particular aspect of this that you brought up before we started recording. But this is one of the areas where I feel like I could greatly simplify my life. I don't need a smartphone. I mean, I spend more time noodling around doing nothing, doom scrolling on my phone through all the horrible news that's going on in the world every day. If I could eliminate that from my life, I think I would be a much happier person. So my first thought was, I sure would love a classic flip phone, a clamshell, something that I can take calls on, I can send and receive text from, maybe take a horrible picture from time to time, because I tend to only get horrible pictures from my iPhone, so why not? And I think I'd be happy. And it turns out that LG and Nokia still make flip phones, clamshells. I was amazed. You can still get them. I don't believe that they're 5G compatible, but then I don't think they need to be.
If they're not smart, then you don't need
it. It doesn't need it. So you can still get a clamshell phone if you want. And if you want something a little bit more modern, there's the new up-to-date Motorola Razr. The Razr, by the way, was one of my favorite flip phones. I love the Razr. I thought that was a great phone. But now we're in the world of smartphones, and I just feel like I don't need it.
Need one. Interesting. Okay.
In some ways, it's become important when it comes to things like security, and we have our authenticator apps and stuff like that. And if we don't have those apps at our fingertips anymore, we need to make other adjustments for how we deal with those types of issues. But in terms of just simplifying my life, I think I would be happier without a smartphone. But I know you had some specific ideas here. What would you do?
Well, I'd be a bit lost without a smartphone, because I do all my banking on a smartphone often, and I would, so that's vital. Having Face ID be so secure and able to log me into things that only I can see because I'm looking at the phone, that's also a vital thing that you can't get in many places. So not only the banking, but also just paying for things. It's become my new wallet, not only for buying things on credit or your debit account if you've got any money in your debit account, but just doing the banking, transferring things and stuff, even so far as if someone was to send me some very old-fashioned form of payment, say for instance they sent me a check I can take a photo of the check with my
Sure.
smartphone and get it uploaded into my bank account there and then. So the convenience of having a smartphone is, and also all the apps, you know, able to get into places and sign up for things. And I'd be very distressed without a smartphone.
And don't get me wrong, I do all of those things, every single one of those things. And every single one of those things I would need to find a workaround for. But if I could, like, oh, I don't know, actually walking into a bank to do banking.
Oh my God.
I know, right? The wallet is certainly an important component of it, and it is something I miss. And I would miss the 2% cash back from the Apple Card, certainly. But just in terms of simplify, I can mimic the same thing. I can have all the features of a smartphone by just uninstalling Flipboard and Apple News. If I got rid of Flipboard and Apple News, I would no longer be doom scrolling. It would all be gone.
Right,
so
okay.
That's what I need to do in truth.
So
in the real world, we need a smartphone. And going back to my original idea of maintaining the broadest compatibility and the widest feature set of stuff that I'm used to doing now on the iPhone, the no-brainer, it would seem, would be a Google Pixel. And that would, of course, mean Android. Now, there are alternatives to that. And the question I have for you, and I'll just start with this question, is why such a hatred for Android? I've used it for many, many years, and I never had a problem with it. I never had security issues with it.
Yes. Now you're asking.
As it has gone on and new versions have been released, some of the concerns in the past have been addressed. But then the same is true of iOS. So...
this is probably where we differ slightly. This is where we probably differ.
You can download malicious software through the Apple App Store. It's there.
It is possible.
It is possible. You can do it.
But
so
much less likely. Yes.
See, I think the difference here is I feel it's the user's responsibility to not download malicious software. I feel that the user should be questioning, do I really need this software that I'm being told I need? And if they don't need it, then don't download and install it. It's quite simple. But I believe your viewpoint is, and I know you'll correct me when I'm wrong, I believe your viewpoint is that the user should be shielded from that kind of stuff if it's offered. And it's not all malicious. To me, Facebook is malicious. And I purposely do not install it. I do not install it. I do not want it. And we find out later the malicious stuff it does, like digging into your photos and pulling them out and analyzing them for their AI and all that. Great. I don't have to worry about that. I never installed it. So to me, it's the user's responsibility. I do agree that Google and Apple and others who maintain app stores have a certain level of responsibility to screen for malicious software before they make it available to the public. But that is a very difficult task, which is why it slips into the Apple App Store as well. It's a difficult task. And Google is doing a better job of it. Apple is doing the best job that they can do, which is why it's such a nice, neat, clean app store to download apps from. But why a hatred for Android, which itself is a secure operating system?
Well, a lot of it is historical, but I probably wouldn't want to go into all the reasons, because I have probably an 18-point list of all the things I dislike about Google. So what I'll do, I'll send you the list one day, and that might be an interesting trigger for
future
another
episode.
A future episode, indeed,
There you
like
go.
perhaps a Why I Hate Google episode or something like that. But yes, it is a me thing. I do admit not everyone will definitely feel like, the way I do about using Google and their services and so on. So, I mean, I was looking into the phone situation and what I would buy, because I have my own self-inflicted restrictions there. So if Apple was not an option and Android was also not an option, because I've discounted the Google idea, and also uh, any other options that were the only option to me available would be some sort of custom ROM type phone based situation, or Linux. And there just happens to be a fairly nice, not on the same level as Apple phones, for instance, and even the lowest version doesn't even come close. But there are some options that are very interesting, because they're based on Ubuntu Touch, which is a nice touch-based version of Ubuntu, which feeds
sure.
in
Now
nicely
you like
with.
Ubuntu.
Oh, Ubuntu is fabulous
No,
now.
I'm
Yes,
kidding.
that's
I'm
it.
kidding. It's a joke.
That's true. So that was an option.
Yeah.
There are Ubuntu Touch based phones available, although I think there's only about a couple, so you don't get much of a choice. And there's also the idea, you mentioned the Pixel, but you don't have to run Android on your Pixel.
That's right.
One of the interesting options was a fairly new OS. I think it's new, although I could be wrong there. It could be not as new as I think, but it's called Graphene OS.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons for the existence of Graphene OS is to mitigate against all the horrible things that Google does with Android, which is one of the reasons why I don't want to use it. So Graphene OS, for instance, they will enforce sandboxing of apps, so they can't look at each other's memory spaces and hack into each other's data, which normal Android just allows you to do. You can end up with a lovely situation where it's a bit of a Wild West free-for-all in Android itself, which is one of the things that Graphene OS guards against, and it stops applications from going outside their sandboxes and doing interesting things. So yes, so that would be another possibility, having a very nice, because the hardware is good, a very nice Pixel phone, but not running Android, and in replacing it with Graphene OS. But there is one big downside to the Graphene OS side of things, because at the moment, the banking apps don't seem to trust Graphene. So you can't do your online banking within an app on Graphene OS at the moment. That may change in the future, but that's one big downside to trying to get away from all of that stuff. But one of the things it does allow is Graphene OS allows you to make use of the Google Play Store, but in a more secure and private way than Android does. So that's another interesting angle of what you could look into about trying to replace the functionality of an iPhone, but without going down the Android route. But so there's a couple of options there: Ubuntu Touch and Graphene OS.
Yeah, and Lineage OS is another option.
And Lineage, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yes, I forgot that.
I had written down Graphene, and the nice thing about Graphene and Lineage and many of the other alternative operating systems for Android hardware is that it will run, or they will run, on a wide range of Android hardware, even older hardware that's no longer supported by modern releases of Android. That would be, wouldn't that be beautiful in the iPhone world if we could do that? But in the Android world, it's a little bit more like the Windows PC world, in that often older hardware can be put to good use by installing an alternate operating system. That's an excellent point about banking app compatibility, because that is important. And I would imagine that some third-party security apps may have an issue with it as well, because it's not a recognized operating system. And so from my viewpoint, in terms of broadest compatibility, that would pretty much leave me at the steps of Android, because I know that the apps that I use, that I trust, that are developed by a third party, whether it's my bank or Microsoft or whomever, will be available on Android.
Yes.
And I specifically picked the Pixel because one, I just like the hardware. I think it's very good hardware. And two, I know that it's going to always be running the latest edition of the Android operating system, whatever that might be. There's no waiting period. It's not like if you make the mistake of purchasing a Samsung phone and you have to wait for Samsung to adopt their version of Android to whatever the latest release is. And then
usually takes months.
It takes months. And then you're at the mercy of this third-party phone developer, phone manufacturer, to keep the phone updated for a reasonable amount of time. So that's why the Pixel would be my choice. But there is other great hardware out there. But in terms of what most people might recognize, I think the Google Pixel is a great device. But if you're not completely sold on the idea of running Android, there are the third-party options as well, which would be Lineage, Graphene, and Ubuntu Touch, and myriad others. I think the biggest issue with Ubuntu Touch or other Linux variants is that you don't have the same app ecosystem that you have on iOS and Android.
Yeah.
And so many of the apps, many of the security apps, the banking apps, and even the games that you're used to playing just won't exist. You'll have other choices, but you won't have those choices, and that could actually make your life much more difficult. So I think that's a good choice. Graphene is a good choice in that it will run, as you said, Android apps from the Google Play Store, but some of those apps may take issue with the fact that you're not running on Android itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, good choice.
I did have good luck with the a possible replacement for an iPad, which could be interesting to use with, say, for instance, if you wanted to have a guest iPad instead of a guest computer, that would be quite an interesting option. So I found a tablet called the Starlabs Starlight Mark V, which is a Linux tablet, and that runs Ubuntu Touch as well. So that's a nice, interesting option as a tablet guest user option, because of course you can log into and out of user accounts on Linux, so that makes it easy to set it up for a guest or just have it permanently in a guest mode for that sort of usage, because you can log into and out of user accounts.
I think in the world that we live in, the Apple ecosystem world that we live in, where Apple wants us to think of the iPad as a computer, in that world, running a variant of Linux on a tablet makes sense, especially in the world where we're running a distro of Linux on our desktop. It makes sense to have a tablet that can do it.
Yes.
Some of the other tablets that get good mention, and we could go back to the idea of that Dell 14-inch running as a 2-in-1, and so thereby you're having somewhat of a tablet experience running the full desktop version of Linux with a touchscreen instead, and the bulk of a two-in-one that you're folding over to get that
Yeah, it's not quite
experience,
as slim and sleek and
Not
fast and
quite as
nice
slim and
as what we're
sleek.
used to.
Yeah. We should probably mention that Google does make a tablet still to these days. I
Yeah,
was
but you got to run
surprised.
Android on it.
I was surprised. I did not know that Google still made a tablet. I had no idea, but yet there you go. It's called the Pixel tablet. So they still make one.
They've not
And
entirely given up on tablets.
I used to have a 7-inch Google tablet, and it was a really nice size. It's like folks who love the iPad Mini.
Like
I
a
really
mini, yeah.
like this small tablet, and it had a nice look and feel to it. And that quickly died because it was no longer supported by the new operating systems that were coming out. So it no longer became a viable tablet to use. I stand corrected. That was actually produced by Dell. It was a 7-inch Dell tablet running Android, and Dell stopped making them, and then it was no longer supported by new versions of Android. That was the deal, now that I remember. But the Amazon Fire tablets often get good mention. I'm not as big of a fan of those, much like I'm not a big fan of something we're going to talk about in a second, which is the Amazon Fire TV box.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because they're much, to me, it's much like when you buy a TV with Roku built in or Amazon Fire built in or whatever built into it.
How long is it going to be supported? Yeah.
How long is it going to be supported? And two, you're somewhat limited in terms of how you interact with it because they slap this third-party interface on top of what should be a normal, straightforward interface in order to, big surprise, show you advertisements.
Advertising.
Yeah, so a stock Fire tablet should be okay, especially if you don't buy an ad-supported version. Like the Kindles, you can get an ad-supported version.
Pay a bit extra with that.
And I don't know what the deal is with the Fire, if I'm being honest, but often, especially with the Amazon Fire, they like to stick ads in your face, and I'm not as big of a fan of that. Now, another set-top box, moving on to set-top boxes, because we need to replace our Apple TV, that I really do like, but does display a certain number of small, somewhat unobtrusive ads, is the Roku. I do like the Roku box. I like the broad selection of apps that you can run on it, the broad selection of services you can subscribe to through it. And that broad selection of services is probably the only reason I don't switch to an Apple TV, because the Apple TV ecosystem is a little bit more limited than the Roku in terms of the TV apps you can run on it. But what would you get to replace your Apple TV?
Well, it would be difficult because I've got really used to all the interesting things I can do on the Apple TV, and especially since I've got a sizable collection of Apple movies. So that's the tricky situation. Like if Apple's data centers are also trampled by said irradiated elephants, then we have the problem of where to buy movies. I was thinking at one stage that the Xbox itself might be an option because that would cover gaming, also TV streaming, and movies. Although Microsoft have recently, fairly recently, stopped selling movies, so that's awesome, isn't it? So all the poor people that spent lots of money on digital versions of their movies in a nicely curated store there from Microsoft found themselves adrift when Microsoft then said, "Oh no, we're not doing this anymore. Let's shut the doors on that one." So you've got to be wary of who you buy your digital movies from, because will they stay running for the rest of your life when you want to still carry on watching the movies you've bought? So it's a tricky situation. Quite a few places do support that. So there's the Amazon. Amazon of course sells movies too. And then there was also the Sony PlayStation. So that was my other uh, thing to look at, because that covers all bases. Because earlier on we identified the lack of good gaming capabilities on Ubuntu Touch. Then you could replace that with a PlayStation. I did initially look at a Switch, because that would be quite an interesting situation where you could take that off your TV, still do TV gaming through the Switch, but undock it and take it around with you and game on do mobile gaming, which then means you don't have to rely on a replacement iPad or iPhone for mobile gaming. So that it covers those things. The trouble is the Switch doesn't support TV streaming. There's currently a proposed app going through for YouTube on the Switch, but that's about as far as it goes. There doesn't seem to be anything else available for, at least in the UK, for TV streaming apps and so on. So that was a bit of a non-starter. So then the only thing left for me there was the PlayStation.
I thought Netflix and YouTube and some of the other streaming services, Hulu, were available on the Switch.
I'll need to look into it again, because when I looked into it, it said that there were no TV streaming services available for the Switch. That might be a little bit more due to the fact that I'm in the UK and I'm looking for UK streaming services. So there may be some other things available that, such as if you're happy to base all of your entertainment on Netflix, you might have better luck. But I don't think that they had much in the way of support for streaming services. If they did, the Switch would be an interesting option, because it would cover all the other bases.
I think more likely what we're talking about here is something that Mike knows absolutely zero about, and that is what can or cannot be run on a Switch. Now, if we had my daughter on the show as a guest, she could tell us. But
perfect.
Yes, I believe you are correct. You may be correct. I think I'm misremembering what can or cannot be run on a Switch. But I will give my recommendation for movies, and that is something that would completely eliminate the problem of purchasing digital movies and television shows and then not being able to watch them when they decide to pull the switch on them. And that is to purchase physical media. Physical media is the way to ensure that can't happen. Now, look, I'll admit, I'll buy a Blu-ray movie, but then I don't necessarily watch the physical disc, because most Blu-ray movies, or at least here in the States, include a digital copy. And most movie studios, not all, but most movie studios, Warner Brothers, I'm looking at you, most movie studios they're in partnership with something called Movies Anywhere. And
that's a good option, yeah.
When you enter the code at Movies Anywhere, what happens is your movie is not only added to your Movies Anywhere library, but then it's shared out to other libraries that you happen to have, including your Apple movie library.
Excellent.
And likewise, movies that you had in your Apple library that you purchased may sync to Movies Anywhere. So it's a really good solution for a digital library that does not then depend upon Apple. And if there's something where, and the reason I'm looking at Warner Brothers, because they expire their digital coupons much quicker than any other studio.
Wow.
If by some chance you get that digital code and it's expired, well, there's always Make MKV and the ability to rip a Blu-ray into a digital copy that you would use for personal purposes.
Personal use only, yes. Don't share it to everyone.
Don't share it with anybody else. But if you happen to know about the existence of Make MKV and you happen to own a Blu-ray player that you can connect to your Mac or Linux computer, and you happen to accidentally rip that movie into a digital file, and you use it for personal use only, that would be another way to do it. But Yeah, Movies Anywhere is great, and that's why I buy physical copies.
Yeah,
because
that's a good option I didn't think about.
I know the physical copy will always serve as a backup. It will always be a backup. It'll always be a way for me to
Interesting.
get that movie back in the event that Movies Anywhere and Apple and Google Movies and Vudu, or it's not called Vudu, it's Fandango, and all these other services, when they all disappear and they all decide that I can no longer watch the digital copies, I will have a physical copy I can always fall back on. So that's why I tend to go that route. We did have a comment from Brian. Let's see. Let me switch over to this here. Oh, there's that old picture. That's from last week. That's not a comment from Brian. Here's the comment from Brian. Thinking about the concept of getting rid of a smartphone may be easier as most don't use them as a phone. In actuality, perhaps most would be just fine with any internet connected device when in your office or home. It was a two-part chat.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
yeah, one of the things I was going to mention is that you can I mean, assuming we're still in our Apple ecosystem now, and the elephants haven't quite made it there yet. One of the things you can do is to expand on the usage of focus modes, because you can very in a very detailed way choose how focus modes make your phone behave. So you can set various times where the phone is set up and only shows you things you want it shown at a certain time. Completely change the look and feel of the phone between times of day or different focus modes. You can exclude behavior that you don't want to encourage on yourself. So looking into what I'm not an expert with focus modes in any way, but I know they're extremely powerful if you delve into the weeds and set things up the way you want to. You can turn your smartphone into a dumb phone effectively, but by your command, and when you need. Yeah. Indeed, but but when you need the option of having it smart again, you can just come out of that focus mode and go back into a smart mode. So just as long as you've got a little bit of discipline there, you can do some fun things with focus modes to make your smartphone behave less smart, if you know what I mean.
Darren, you are assuming for a moment that I have any discipline at all. And the discipline to enable focus mode alone is way too much for me to take on. So it's part of the reason focus mode doesn't work for me. I forget about it. I barely remember to turn on Do Not Disturb when we do these live streams. And I think, yeah, automating some of this would be a much smarter way for me to approach that in the future. And certainly using automation in combination with things like focus mode would be
that's where the power comes.
A great way to go. Yeah, exactly. That's where the power comes.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can even get it to, for instance, have a shortcut, look up your calendar event for when you're recording the show, and say, okay, a show recording is happening. I'll automatically set up focus modes to only make this available, and put yourself in Do Not Disturb and set all the settings up that you want to set up, but do it all automatically just for it looking up your calendar.
Yeah, which is wonderful. Okay, so we covered replacing Mac hardware. We covered the operating system, replacing the operating system. We covered replacing apps that we might lose when we no longer have access to our Macs. We talked about cloud replacement services. We talked about phone replacements, although I don't know if we'll ever agree on that one. But we talked about phone replacements. We talked about tablet replacements. We talked about Apple TV replacements. And what did we miss that we might want to talk about that would be good to cover before we wrap this up? Because we are already past the point where this is going to be any reasonable edit at all.
Oh wow! Past the point of no return.
Way past the point of no return.
The only thing I was going to add was there are two things. Which one is AirTags, which I don't think are too much of a problem, because although they're an Apple ecosystem thing, there are alternatives to AirTags you can get.
Lots,
but lots of alternatives. But because I'm a little bit on the anti Google and Android side of things, I would have to have it work purely through the web. But I think that's okay, because several of the options that are available do offer full functionality through the web, I think. So that would be something to look at. And the only other one I was going to mention was about Apple Home, because one of the features of the Apple TV is to act as your home hub for your home devices.
True.
So currently we're spoiled. We're used to the very easy situation where you just have to plug in your Apple TV and it will automatically discover the home systems and services you've got set up and act as a server for them. It's auto discover and zero config. It just works. You just turn it on and there it is. So
sure,
having the alternative is...
Not one thing I have works with Apple Home. Not one.
Ah, well, there you go. So that's what I've made sure that that I don't buy any device that isn't fully compatible with Apple Home.
Yeah.
So you're right, because the current situation of home devices is difficult, because they're spread around lots of different services, and some support some and some don't support the other. So I limit myself to only buying devices that are fully compatible with Apple Home. And if you do that, then everything does just work. But if you don't, then you've got interesting surprises there. Yeah. But the only thing I was going to mention about Apple Home is not just Apple Home, but just home devices in general, is if you don't have this automatic server management type thing built into the Apple TV, the alternatives don't seem to allow that. So you would have to allow for having your own little home device server and so on, and mimic the stuff that's already built into the Apple TV. You'd have to regenerate that yourself. So it's harder to move away from some of these Apple integrated systems that come pre-set up, and move towards something that you would have to put some effort into to get working.
Like a Home Assistant server.
Like a Home Assistant server, exactly, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, which would be a great option and runs on a Raspberry Pi.
It does.
Yeah.
But then you have to learn how to use it and how to set it up. And,
please. It's all a web interface. It's super simple.
Oh.
Super simple. Well, I think we beat that dead elephant.
I think I think so. I think we might have saved the world from the elephants.
So with that, what do you think? How would you replace your Apple ecosystem when Apple no longer exists? If you have any feedback on that topic or would like to share a favorite story or two from I don't know what I was going to say. It's been a long afternoon.
It's been a long day.
If you have any feedback you'd like to share on the topic of replacing your Apple home ecosystem in a world where Apple no longer exists, drop me a line, mike@formacisonly.com, or leave a comment in the show notes for this episode, and we will share your comments here on the show. Hey, Darren, I think it's your turn for an essential app.
Oh no! Oh, you sprung that on me. Oh no! That's the one thing I didn't think about. Shocking. I don't have anything. Oh my God.
Well,
this is terrible.
I knew you would.
I could say. There we go. I'll say the OneDrive client, because that's the only thing I've installed.
I have one. I can do one if you don't want to do OneDrive
Excellent.
client. If you want to do OneDrive client, okay.
Excellent.
All right. Then we'll wrap up with that.
Okay.
Well, it is time for our essential app, the part of the show where we talk about an app that we feel every Mac user should have installed in their applications folder. And the app I'm going to mention this time is an app that was ripped from the bowels of Mac OS a couple years ago by Apple themselves. Now, I talked about this on the show before. It is an app that I must fire up at least once a day during the business week, and that's called Network Utility. And the reason I talked about it on the show before is because I figured out how to make Network Utility work on current versions of Mac OS. Very easy little, quote, hack to it. And you can take the last known good edition of Network Utility and make it work on the Mac. But if you don't have an old copy of Network Utility sitting around, or you don't feel like messing around with that, or you realize that after the next edition of Mac OS is released and Intel Mac apps are no longer supported and this little hack won't work anyway, what do you do instead? Well, that brings up this episode's essential app, which is called Network Utility. Surprisingly. No, it's actually called, yeah. It's actually a new version of Network Utility. It is a version of Network Utility that was released by a company called Devon Technologies. And you may recognize that name. Yeah. They make a number of wonderful apps for the Mac. But this one is, as I said, it's just called Network Utility. You might even think of it as Neo Network Utility, but they just call it Network Utility. And when you download it from them, it gives you all the functionality that you would expect if you're used to using the old Apple Network Utility. So that's things like domain whois information, just info about the network interfaces that are installed on your Mac. There's the netstat utility, there's a ping utility, there's a lookup utility, there's a traceroute utility, there's finger and port scan, and there's even a network speed benchmarking tool that I don't believe existed in the original Network Utility. I'd have to fire that up and look. But this new Network Utility from Devon Technologies is, network speed did not exist in the old Network Utility. So that's something new. But this is completely free. You can download it from devontechnologies.com, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. The feature I use in Network Utility all the time is whois. And part of that is because I work with clients and their domains and their websites and things like that. So I need to look up things like, where is the domain registered? When was it registered? When does it expire? Is the domain available? You know, all that kind of stuff. And so I use that whois utility all the time. And I know I can drop down to the command line and I can do it from there. And that works just fine. But when I can fire up the Network Utility app and I can just put in the domain name and tap the who or click the whois button, that's amazing. Now, the nice thing about that aspect of Devon Technologies Network Utility is that they have a lot more choices in there. They have a lot more choices that you can use to look up domain names, including .orgs and .nets and things like that are much more difficult to look up otherwise with the standard Network Utility. So that's super useful. The thing I don't like about it is that when you enter a custom whois server, a whois server is what you use to look up a domain name against, and then returns information about that domain name. When you add a custom whois server, it doesn't tend to remember it. And it also doesn't remember the last whois server that you used, which is something the old Network Utility did do. But otherwise, if you're looking for things like the hardware address of your Wi-Fi interface, or how much data was sent or received by way of your interface, is your interface up and running, things like that, the info tab is perfect for that. If you have use for the netstat utility or the ping utility because you want to check and see if a server out there on the internet is, quote, alive, and you can do a ping against it and its firewall doesn't block you, the ping tab is perfect for that. If you want to do a internet address lookup, you can do that through there. You can do a standard lookup, which is uses the ns lookup command, or you can use the Mac OS directory service, or you can even do a dig like you would do on a Unix system, or from the command line in Mac OS, you could do a dig as well. If you want to do a trace route to see the path that packets are taking to and from a destination on the internet, you can do that through this new network utility. And the list goes on. All the stuff that you're used to, including a speed check, is all built into the new network utility. And as I said, it's completely free from Devon Technologies. So this is actually something that was introduced a year ago. It was introduced in July of 2024, and I only just recently found out about it. Now, as I said, I am someone that continues to use the old network utility because I was able to get it running under newer versions of macOS, but I do know that that has limited life to it because it is an Intel app and will never be updated. Whereas the network utility from Devon Technologies is a universal app, and I know will be around for years to come. So if you are looking for similar functionality to network utility that is no longer built into Mac OS, you might check out Network Utility, or Neo Network Utility, from Devon Technologies. And a link for that will be in the show notes.
Wow, that's fabulous. I didn't realize that it no longer existed. I've just had a little check to see if it is indeed gone. And I use it all the time. I thought I used to use it all the time. When did it disappear from macOS? Is it just recently?
No, it disappeared from macOS 3 or 4 versions ago.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's terrible. I didn't even notice.
Yeah,
that's shocking.
It's been gone for a long time, and Eric and I did an episode where I talked about what you need to do to. Because basically what happens is if you try to run the old version natively, it will fail the security checks because the certificate,
yes,
the security certificate on it is no longer valid. So there is a way to run a command line against it to effectively bless it,
generate a certificate,
generate a certificate for it and allow it to run. So I have a version of it in my Dropbox, and I think it was with Catalina. I think it was Catalina that they removed it.
Wow.
And
I like this option better. This is really good. I think I might have to install this myself.
Ultimately, this is a much, much better option than trying to run a hacked version of it. So the interesting thing about the version that I do run is that because it is, let's see if I'm trying to find, I'll find it as soon as we're done recording. When I add my hacked version of Network Utility to the applications folder, it's fine in there, but I always add it to my dock. And every single time I run a macOS update, macOS removes it from my dock. But it's not smart enough to remove it from my applications folder because it's technically a different version. So it leaves the version in my applications folder alone, but it removes it from my dock. So that's a little inconvenience that I no longer need to go through by running the new or Neo network utility from Devon Technology. So all the more reason to run it, all the more reason to have it. And great essential app for those who need it.
Fabulous. Well, did you mention it was free or not?
Did I mention it's free? It's free. It's completely free. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. Excellent.
That's the price I like. Excellent.
I love that. And if you do, like the app and you want to support Devon Technologies, they have lots of other great Mac apps that you might consider purchasing from them as an effort to support them. Yeah. Devon Think comes to mind. No pun intended.
That's good. Comes to mind. Very, very good. I see what you did there. That's very good.
Oh dear. And with that said, that's going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, I do love to get your letters, so if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, or you would like to share your own thoughts on what you would do when the mighty Elephanzilla comes stomping through Cupertino and destroys Apple as a company, You can leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at formatguysonly.com, or you can drop me a line, mike@formatguysonly.com. Do please be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click that little notification bell so you can find out when we are going live. You can join the chat room, and you can catch all the behind-the-scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. Hey, Darren, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
The best way would be emailing darren@formacisonly.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Darren for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time.
Cheers.
There you go. It's nice to have Brian in the chat room. I like to have him in there. And so, yeah, I guess we'll say goodbye to the live stream. Throw up the end card there, Darren, and I'll be right back with you. All right.
Fabulous.
Bye, live stream.
Cheers.
Cheers.